Thank you. I'm going to call tonight's meeting to order. All rise for a flag salute. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Now, can we have roll call?
Councilmember Murray.
Present.
Councilmember Ryan.
Here.
Councilmember Page.
Present.
Mayor Matsumoto Wright.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Wall.
Here.
And Councilmember Woodard.
Here.
Councilmember Sunmore asked to be excused.
Move to excuse.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? She is excused. Okay, so now we're going to go to late changes on the agenda.
Thank you, Mayor. I do propose tonight that we modify the agenda slightly and move the item number 7, the oversight discussion, up to number 6, and move the community engagement plan discussion down to number 7.
All right. We vote on that, right? Okay. Mayor Pro Tem Wall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Move item 7, oversight discussion, up to 6, and 6 down to 7.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Agenda has been changed. And so next is the public comments. And these are for anything that is not on our agenda. Is anyone signed up for that?
No one has signed up to comment in general.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Wall has an agenda.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Move to approve the consent agenda items A, B, and C.
Second. Sorry, second.
Okay,
Just kind of my voice left.
all right, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. And we're down to the review of the property annexation petition for 224229. Is that correct? 48th Avenue West, and set public hearing date with our planner, Sarah Pizzo. Is she here? Oh. I think there's too many numbers in this address.
Okay, hello, good evening. I'm Sarah Pizzo. I'm the senior planner here at the City of Mountlake Terrace, and I'll be reviewing a petition for annexation. All right, so the purpose today will be to present the petition that the city received to annex the property located at 24229 48th Avenue West. The petitions have been certified as sufficient by Snohomish County Assessor's Office, meaning they meet state requirements for petitions. And the purpose today is to set a date for the public hearing on the petition. There are no statutory requirements concerning the actual hearing other than to give folks an opportunity to speak on the annexation. And also per our code, the first reading of the annexation ordinance is required at that time. So I'm going to go over council goals, comprehensive plan, legislative history, subject summary, financial or budget impacts, make a staff recommendation, and discuss next steps related to this. All right, so council goal that relates to this annexation is growing our vibrant community, an active and dynamic city where arts, culture, and diversity thrive. fostering connections among community members who call Mountlake Terrace home. In our comprehensive plan, annexations align with our capital facilities element, requiring annexation before services can be provided to areas that are unincorporated. And then our land use element, working cooperatively with the county to ensure that annexations have a smooth and orderly transition to city governance. So our legislative history to date, on June 12th, I came before you for a work session to introduce the notice of intent to begin annexation proceedings from the property owner. And so you all reviewed that at that time. And then on June 26th, there was a regular meeting where Resolution 914 was passed to accept the geographical area proposed for annexation. It authorized the circulation of the petition. It required that zoning be adopted at the same time that the annexation will be adopted, and required an assumption of existing city indebtedness. And there will be more future meetings and public hearings, both the Planning Commission and Council to come. So a summary again to refresh on the proposed annexation area. It's located at 24229 48th Avenue West. It's about 0.4 acres, 17,269 square feet. The area shares a boundary with city limits on all sides and is within our urban growth boundary. The property owners are interested in connecting to city sewer service. And so they filed a petition with the city July 9th and July 21st, and we received a certificate that those petitions are sufficient from the county on July 28th this year. There are no financial or budget impacts related to this item. Community notification for today was through the City Council agenda. Future actions will include public hearings and the corresponding noticing. So today I recommend that City Council sets the date of August 21st, 2025, regular meeting for the date of the public hearing on the annexation petition. Next steps are to hold the public hearing on the petition and have the first reading on the annexation ordinance. Staff will, per council direction, send the annexation request to the Snohomish County Boundary Review Board for their review. And then Planning Commission has an upcoming work session and public hearing regarding the zoning designation for the property. And City Council, after that happens, will consider the annexation and the zoning ordinances for adoption. Now we have time for discussion and questions. Thank you.
Are there any questions, comments? I guess there aren't any.
Okay. Great, thank
So
you.
we
for
wait until the next.
We got to set the meeting.
Mayor Pro Tem Wall?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Move to set the August 21st, 2025 regular meeting as the date for the annexation petition public hearing and the first reading of the annexation ordinance per Mountlake Terrace Municipal Code 18.05.320B.
Second.
All right, it's been first and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right. You have a date. Thank you. Okay, so next on our agenda is the oversight discussion with our city manager, Jeff Knighton.
Thank you, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, members of council. A few items that I wanted to point out in the lengthy staff report you received on this topic. Following council approval of the contract with Flock Camera Systems on June 5th, members of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Commission met with Police Chief Kaw and Commander King twice, once on July 7th and again on July 24th to discuss the Flock system and the policy adopted by council. At the June 18th Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Commission meeting, Chair Matsuda suggested that the DEIC Create a subcommittee as members to meet with representatives of the police department periodically to review flock systems. So, following that, at the city council meeting at our last one on July 24th, there was interest expressed in exploring different methods of review, and we've done our research on that throughout the state and throughout the nation on these types of systems. We weren't able to find any advisory commissions or oversight bodies specifically for flock. But we did determine 5 different types of oversight used throughout the country, and you can see those 5 types in their explanations in the staff report. The alternative, or the alternatives, are listed there, but 2 alternatives that could be used here are subcommittee of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Commission, as was discussed, or a reconstitution of the Police Advisory Board. So those are 2 options that are available to you. And tonight, we'd just like to have council discussion and direction to our team on what to prepare for your consideration. Happy to answer any questions.
All right, are there any questions, comments? Councilmember Murray?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, a question before we jump into things, Jeff. One of the things that I didn't realize until I was reviewing the materials, so appreciate staff putting those together, was that it seems like our community police advisory board still exists. It's in our code. It doesn't look like we ever sunset it in a formal capacity. We aren't actively engaged in holding those meetings, but all of that still exists. So I guess I wanted to make sure in terms of reconstitution, is this, if that were the direction that council ultimately decided to go with, is it, I guess, it exists already, we just need to actually actively staff it and fill the seats and then actually have the meetings. Would that be a correct assumption?
That's correct. It was kind of the institutional memory here that in 2017 or thereabouts, that it was disbanded. There was a memo included in your packet recommending that. Although what actually occurred, as far as we can determine from our records, is that the commission or the advisory board was just changed to meeting as needed, and no formal, because it was adopted by ordinance, it has to be rescinded by ordinance, and no formal ordinance to disband that that advisory board was brought to council. So it does still exist, yes.
Thank you, helpful.
Councilmember Page?
Also, Jeff, I guess for education purpose, not just for myself, but for, the audience here and probably listening, what were the parameters that the advisory group had?
That's in code. I can find that real quick. I did not bring that with me, unfortunately, but I know the code section, so give me just a second.
It's in the packet.
Is it in the packet?
Page.
Right after the staff report.
So there were several items that were set forth. Oh, Carolyn's faster than I am. So duties of the board to advise and make recommendations to the manager, the city council, and the chief of police concerning police services within the city, to enhance police community relations, to review and make recommendations concerning the police department policies, procedures, and programs, including budgetary implications, to review and make recommendations on all applications for new liquor licenses in the city and the renewal of liquor licenses when presented, to promote public awareness of the city's police services and programs, including but not limited to crime prevention and DARE. So this was adopted in 1996. I haven't seen a DARE program in a long time. To hold public meetings from time to time to solicit public input regarding police services and programs, to serve as a liaison between the police department and the community, to encourage individuals and community groups to assist the police department with the implementation of police programs and services, to review and make recommendations concerning the construction, development, and purchase of police facilities. And finally, to review and make recommendations concerning such other and further matters that may be referred to the board.
Okay, thank you. I guess I got, the thing that's been on my mind since thinking of having something like this, in place is the skill level, of the individuals that are going to be involved in this. And specifically, and I'm going to talk about Flock, but, the other stuff that's in here, I think, covers that parameter. But at the same time, I think the most important thing that if we're going to say we're going to put this back in place is that, this body here is efficient in knowing what it is that we're asking of them to do and to report on, and educated to that point, as well as those members that are going to be part of the advisory group or whatever it is that we're going to call them are trained enough in the whole entire aspects of whatever it is that we're asking them to do, so that there aren't any miscues, in what they're trying to do and what we're asking them to do and what they're reporting to the public. I don't think that anything goes forward until training happens, and I don't know what kind of training they received when this first started. I don't know if anyone's still around for that, but I think it's worth looking into is just what was the process, or was it just a group that was brought in? This is what we do. This is what we'd like you to do, and let's see how it comes out.
So our current chair of the DEIC was a member of the Police Advisory Board when it was moved to meeting as needed. So there is some institutional memory there. Also, Chief Kaw was a part of that group as well. So there's some background. I think as far as Flock specifically, toward the end of the staff report, and I didn't mention it tonight, but there are some suggested performance measures if you wanted to move in that direction, and we can definitely include that in the orientation packet that any members of that board would receive.
Mayor Tim Wall?
At what point are we going to hear from the public, I guess?
So I think
do
after
I want
the
to make my comments now or wait?
Yeah, well, I think following the presentation, if there's no further questions of me at this moment, then we can move to public comment, and then you can have your discussion.
Great. Thank you.
Do we open public comment, or do you just have public?
Our city clerk has the list, and she can go through those along with anyone else that didn't sign up but wishes to speak.
All right, they signed up.
It's not a public hearing, so we don't.
Oh, no, okay. So do we have anyone signed up?
Yes.
All right.
So the first person is George Stanton. You'll have 5 minutes at the podium.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I was not for the adoption of the Flock system and spoke against its adoption on June 5th. It feels like we have adopted a mass surveillance system with very little justification for it. This has made me very uneasy. The justification that I did hear at the vote were that other communities have it and there's a network benefit. It would help find people fleeing crimes in vehicles. We'll be a target if we don't have it, and some anecdotes about violent crimes that have happened in the city. As a recent victim of crime at my home in Mountlake Terrace, the lack of justification for this invasive program worries me. Once installed, it will track every single one of us every single day, and I honestly still don't know why. It's not going to solve every crime in the city, so when Flock comes back in the next 2 years and pitches us their next generation product, Nova, which tracks people's faces, will we adopt that same will we adopt it with the same lack of justification? This isn't hypothetical. This will happen. They are currently developing it, and you can read about it on their website. And as people who are currently Flock customers, we will be the first to receive that pitch. Will we adopt that out of fear too? How much mass surveillance will we self-impose for the illusion of safety? I'm also very worried about our contract with Flock, specifically Section 5.2, which states, and I quote, "Flock may access, use, preserve, and/or disclose the footage to law enforcement authorities, government officials, and/or third parties." In short, we are required to trust Flock's judgment on how they use our data. This is a company who lies in their marketing material, claiming 10% of crimes in the US have been solved with Flock, a statistic that the lead researcher of that very study disavowed and called statistically invalid, yet it's still on the marketing material that we received and saw on June 5th. They've also sued open source researchers, and they were intending to use stolen dark web data until they received immense public backlash. I do not understand why we signed a contract that requires us to trust this company. I understand that we're not going to reverse this $54,000 trial today or in the next few months, so I've been thinking about what would make me feel better about this mass surveillance program. I think we should do all we can to assuage the concerns of the residents of this city. At the very least, I think we should, one, create an independent oversight body, and I'm glad to hear that we've been talking a little bit about that. Two, I think that we should look at removing this language from our contract that allows Flock's discretion on giving our data to law enforcement agencies like ICE and third parties. And three, and I am very passionate about this piece, we should have a measure of what success looks like with Flock. If this really is a trial, we should be able to say today what success or failure of the trial looks like. What metrics are we looking at and what targets? These cannot be whatever metrics Flock comes up with at renewal time. I've been in that position at a tech company of coming back and trying to prove the product. They will come up with something. These should be whatever we aim to do by adopting Flock in the first place. This is an incredible amount of money to spend on a fancy tool. We should know what we are looking to get out of it, and we should be able to have a candid discussion of what the benefit of this system provided come renewal time. Right now, we're once again in the position of just trusting whatever Flock says. Thank you.
Next, Benjamin Ho, you have 5 minutes at the podium.
Dear Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, City Council members, I'd originally planned here tonight to deliver a scathing rebuke of both the Council's decisions and the decision-making process regarding the vote on Flock cameras, and to bring the cameras in our systems. But as I contemplated the source of my passion, it occurred to me that it wasn't anger. It wasn't out of anger that I'm standing before you today. It is out of love that I've come to speak, to give you my comments. It is this love for my community, for my neighbors, for our parks, for our community fabric. It is the love for the people who call Mountlake Terrace home, who travel into our neighborhoods on their way to work, those who work here, those who come to relax, shop, worship, learn, and to enjoy life to the fullest. It is this very passion and love and concern that brings me and many others in this room today to urge you to protect our community. I am asking you to cancel the Flock contract. These are steps that only you can take to safeguard and protect our community, your neighbors, your friends, and their families. There is one line of thinking I've seen espoused where we, with the proper safeguards, can minimize the risk that's posed by Flock's ubiquitous surveillance. I urge you to consider another perspective, wholly rejecting the risk, the violence, the destruction of Mountlake Terrace image of being a wonderful community where people of all walks of life can thrive without fear of for a case of mistaken identity, of being stalked, of having their rights violated, or having to fear for their families being torn asunder. When there is opportunity to totally sidestep the harm that is facing our community by our own machinations, no expense is perhaps too great. Tonight, I'm asking you to truly listen, to empathize with the testimony from the people who are in this room today, but also with those who have given their testimony here as well, who have shared their deepest fears on the threats to our community, to our neighbors, our friends, to put yourselves in their shoes. But I also really want to, I would be remiss to not mention one more thing that may not be totally obvious, and which is that many in our community are voices, and they will not be heard tonight. Those whose command, for example, whose command of the English language may not be sufficient to advocate for themselves and for those families. Those who are too terrified by this terrifying, cruel climate in which, and who are too scared to exercise the most important right Americans have fought and died for. I must remind you that even though their voices are not directly heard tonight, they are in our community, and there are many speaking on their behalves, and they're your constituents as well. In the very near future here, you will have some difficult decisions to make. I do not envy you, but as our elected representatives, it is your job to represent our interests and to make the difficult decisions that represent those you work for. I know you love the community just as much as I and others do, and that is why you chose to serve in public office in the first place. Tonight, I call on you to do the right thing and take the steps necessary to protect those that you love and care for. Thank you.
Next is James Geyer. You'll have 5 minutes at the podium.
Good evening. So my name is James Geyer. I've been a resident of Mountlake Terrace with my wife and young son for 3 years, having bought a house in the Ballinger neighborhood back in 2022. We like it here. Overall, we feel the neighborhood and city is warm, welcoming, and safe as a dense city in a metro area can reasonably be. I have, since moving here, not attended a city council meeting, though I have kept tabs on the goings-on in the city and largely approved of how things are handled here. So to begin, I would like to express my gratitude that you are a governing body and you approach your duties with both seriousness and competence. That's not a given by any means. The reason, however, I've decided to come tonight is to speak about the Flock ALPR system and my concerns over its implementation in our city. I want to be clear, I understand and agree with the desire for maintaining and even improving the overall safety of our city. But safety is often a loaded word and can so easily be used to justify methods that have unintended or even hostile side effects. The Flock ALPR system is one of these. Fundamentally, the notion of a camera system tracking every vehicle and logging its license plate, retaining that data, whether it's a positive hit or just a random car, on their servers for 30 days, which can be accessed by law enforcement not only from Mountlake Terrace, but other state or federal agencies, is frankly abhorrent to me. What legal guarantee is there that this system cannot be abused? Is an MOU truly enough to ensure the Flock does not yield MLT residence data to a federal or state agency that might use that data for purposes that, as a city, we are opposed to? Or that the hot list of license plates the system flags and checks against is a reliable source? For example, the NCIC list that the FBI creates that Flock checks against is known to have reliability and privacy issues. I am also concerned that this is a slippery slope. Installing a system like this will normalize its use to a point where people become accustomed to it. Flock is also working on recognition of people, bicycles, animals, or specific noises. Their marketing explicitly describes their AI-assisted tools for aiding in this recognition. I do not think it likely that such a system is something that this city or council would approve today, but after several years of using Flock ALPR and getting complacent with the privacy concerns, while having this company push their new features and flashy sales pitch? Or what about the case of an all too possible data breach? Ring camera systems, for example, have had their own data breaches giving unauthorized people access to customers' data and videos. For even the largest of tech companies, data breaches are a matter of when, not if. Having your credit card information exposed is a headache. Having your location, car, and driving habits exposed is plausibly much worse than that. I know many of these fears sound hyperbolic, but I don't believe they are. Public safety is important, but there must be other factors to consider, and I think a reasonable right to privacy and a concern about the misuse or abuse of a surveillance system like Flock outweighs the benefits it could provide for our city. Thank you.
Next is Sam Doyle. You'll have 5 minutes at the podium.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. I've already made public comment about this before, so I'm not going to delve into my myriad objections about Flock. I think people know those by now. Instead, I'm going to talk about trust and community and votes and you as elected officials. A vote is a private expression of our trust. That's what a vote is. It's trust that's placed in each of you as an elected or an appointed official. Our votes are a private yet collective expression of the trust and confidence that we have in each of you as representatives of our community. You each bring very different skills, values, experiences, and perspectives to the table. Trust must be continually earned and maintained through your ethical leadership, your governance, and transparency with us, your constituents. We all vote for elected officials because we believe that they will listen to us. We believe that we matter to them. We believe we matter to you. And they matter to them, and they will represent us at tables where we do not hold power, formally or informally. This is our social contract. This is our contract. You have the formal power here because we have given it to you. This is why you have it. We trust you. However, heavy is the head that wears the crown, right? With that trust and power comes immense responsibility, the most important of which to me is to listen to those who have placed their trust in you. You cannot know what people need, what they want, or what they don't want in their lives if you have not listened to them first. As a nurse practitioner, I cannot possibly know what my patient needs if I don't start by listening to them tell their story. Why are they in clinic? What's happening today? What's bothering you? Then I can know how I can help them. Otherwise, it's just my own plan, and it won't be a good plan of care. As a community, we were not listened to. When it came to flock, we said no, repeatedly, firmly, and bravely, using reason, history, and our hearts. Twice as many people spoke out against it as did for it. People brought up concerns about the contract, privacy, and purchasing the system at a time when the federal government is literally kidnapping undocumented people from the streets and placing them in squalid concentration camps. That is what's happening in the world right now. It's pertinent. So some of you said nothing, and you voted yes. Some of you voted yes with a seemingly superficial level of scrutiny. Some of you voted no, and you carefully shared with us your rationale for doing so, which was appreciated. So here we are with an unfortunate ongoing public display of trying to put the toothpaste back in the tube. It did not have to be this way. And as a result, the relationship between us has been damaged. There's been a breach in trust between the council and countless city residents. I have talked to so many about this, and they bring it up. It's not always me, trust me. But I also realize that we can't go back. We can't go back, literally or figuratively. But what we can do is we can glance back to learn what went wrong. I think amends need to be offered before solutions, and they have not been. I urge the council to show accountability publicly by acknowledging how, as a body, you failed to listen to us. This would be a start to heal the relationship. We can then look ahead together for opportunities to do better as we all move on, as you've already been doing with members of the police department and the DEI Commission. It will take time to repair this breach of trust. This will not be an easy fix. It will take reflection on who you are as individuals and as a governing body, bravery, and an ongoing commitment from you to listen to us, the people. I have faith that it's possible. Thank you for your time, and thank you for your service and commitment to our city.
Next is Laura Winkler. You'll have 5 minutes at the podium.
Hi there. So a few weeks ago or a month ago or however long it's been, we, the people of Mountlake Terrace, came to give our thoughts and opinions, and we were invited by the council to talk about our concerns with the flock system. And multiple people came and sent emails and spoke out and gave speeches about the problematic camera system flock. But then after that, when the council voted, 5 people voted yes and only 2 voted no, despite what the people of Mountlake Terrace wanted. So it was clear that the people were ignored. And in this time in history, I've never encountered anything as bad as it is now. We are living under fascism in America, and this is just about the worst time in my lifetime to have a mass surveillance system when the federal government is targeting people who do not have white skin and who may appear to be immigrants, whether or not they're US citizens, abducting them, throwing them into concentration camps, basically. It's kind of like we're living in 1930s Germany again, and I've already said this before, but we're still here. And I'm urging council to reconsider flock. It is it will be very dangerous for so many people. It's already been abused, and data has already been breached in different areas in the country, and there's no reason why it won't continue to be abused and breached. People do not feel safe in Mountlake Terrace in this country because of surveillance like this, and ICE, their budget is enormous now. It's just outrageous, and it's only a matter of time before they start coming, knocking on our door, Mountlake Terrace, putting pressure on Mountlake Terrace to give them information. And then what is Mountlake Terrace Council gonna do? We have a bully as a president, and they will be putting pressure on Mountlake Terrace. It's just a matter of time. ICE will be here. So I want the council to come up with very specific plans for how to keep our vulnerable community members safe, and cancel flock. Thank you.
Next is Susan Kuhn. You'll have 5 minutes.
Good evening, all. Susan lives in Mountlake Terrace, also, as do all of us, I suppose. She says, I am concerned with the installation and use of the Flock's cameras in our city of Mountlake Terrace. The reason is it's a pervasive system of surveillance, and according to the website study.com, the definition is the key objective of surveillance is to provide information to guide interventions. It is well reported from local news as well as national news that highly illegal capturing and deporting of residents in our country is being executed daily. Those must be the interventions. The sources of information for tracking and capturing individuals is secretive and mostly unknown. There is a present danger in collecting and storing data on the whereabouts and movement of all residents, as presently there are not sufficient guardrails for data protections. Knowing this, as our city has chosen to proceed with the installation of the flock cameras, let us at least provide data oversight and protections. I am in agreement with others in our community that one step would be for council to create a commission that would be responsible for the oversight of protections of information and the tracking of any access acquired. It has been suggested a community policing advisory board would be an effective arm of oversight, or as we said earlier, reconstituting that advisory board. Please hear the community plea for internal oversight and take appropriate action. Thank you.
Next is you, Lee.
Hello again. So nice to see you. So from the very beginning, I'm in opposition to surveillance, but certainly to flock cameras in general. Our community is beautifully diverse, and most of us respect and value these differences. Our police department has shown great understanding and good actions, in my observation, and our neighborhoods, mostly, but not always, are protective and vigilant of each other. Yet many have reason to worry. And we worry that you're not listening to the citizens. I've rambled on about this in the past at the June 5th meeting, and a little background which created hairs standing up on the back of my neck since the late 90s. And it has to do with thumbprints on their driver's license, but that's where the hair started to stand up. But then we had the 9/11 terrorist attack, and the President Bush then said he passed the USA Patriot Act that was enacted in 2001 as an emergency act. The following thing that happened in 2005 on this emergency act was the Real ID Act. And that was, as a law, resulted in a commission to be formed. And that commission recommended that the federal government set standards for identifications of its citizens. Both of these allowed for greater surveillance of communication. So it seemed pretty innocuous at that point. Not really. Opponents of the law believed in the vulnerabilities to data breaches and government surveillance, and certainly has proved to be true. So now, here it is, 2025, so only 24 years after the Emergency Act. Full implementation is going on in our country, but I understand it's only about 60% enacted at this point. Our privacy is not safeguarded. We know that. Everybody's breaching everything we have ever had. So breaches are pretty regular things. You probably get little cards in the mail almost every other week or something. Something of my information was breached. So I suppose I'm not the only one. We should, however, in regard to the flock cameras and as a community, have real safeguards to protect all who pass through the gaze of flock. Living in fear will deteriorate our community. In all the ways we are already surveilled, it weakens our trust in what we call community. It weakens our trust in the people who aren't listening, but making the rules and setting up things. I, too, am in agreement that Council should work to create an independent commission for oversight and protection of the information from the flock cameras. A community policing advisory board would be essential. Please reconstitute that. And I agree with Councilman Page that people need to be trained to do this. I sort of remembered that previous police advisory council, and we need to have people who know what they're looking for. This is pretty high-end stuff. So we need to have a very informed and educated panel. So thank you for listening, and thank you everybody else.
Next is Sarah Junkin-Clark. You'll have 5 minutes at the podium.
Good evening. My name is Sarah. I'm a 35-year resident of Mountlake Terrace. I didn't bring anything prepared. And I'm not going to go over the things that everyone else has about flock and how so many of us feel about that. But what I did want to say is, I'm one person. I'm one of, 15,000 voting residents in Mountlake Terrace. And I'm one of them that doesn't feel heard. So many of us spoke up against flock and feel ignored, that there wasn't a delay, that there wasn't an answer, there wasn't transparency. Emails were sent to city staff to try and have a bigger conversation. that weren't replied to. And in talking to other residents, that's what I heard too. They didn't feel heard. So I'm standing up here because I want my voice heard. I want you guys to know that we, the residents, don't feel heard. And all I'm asking you to do is please listen. Listen to what the community is saying. That's it.
Dale, Jeremiah, you got 5 minutes at the podium.
Thank you, Dale Jeremiah. We've lived here since 1987. I started reading this book recently called It Can't Happen Here by Sinclair Lewis. It was written in 1935 about fascism in America. And I want to briefly summarize what's in this book. The president was fairly elected, but then he established martial law. Think about the troops in LA recently. Redistricted the country. Think of Texas right now. Seized control of the press and universities. Think of NPR and PBS and Harvard. He neutered Congress. And then they did some other things like gradually and secretively that they went unnoticed. And so that led me to where we're at now with the flock camera system. Now, under the guise of public safety, masked ICE agents are detaining Hispanic people and placing them in concentration camps. Now, regardless of the safeguards of Policy 617, ICE could obtain DOL license registration for everyone with a Hispanic surname. Now, King 5 News reported on July 11th that ICE is doing DOL record search now. Now, ICE could then use flock cameras to track all of their movements. Now, my stepdaughter has a Hispanic surname. Now, will she be safe from masked gunmen when she is driving out of the transit parking garage? Now, if we refuse to turn over flock cameras to ICE, will the current administration send FBI agents to arrest all of the city council? I mean, they've talked about arresting the Democrats from Texas that are currently in Illinois with the FBI. Flock is trying to provide a solution to the perceived problem of public safety. But this private, for-profit company will not stop another Brian Kronberger, Gary Ridgway, or Ted Bundy. The council is creating a problem of lack of trust. The solution is to cancel the flock contract. Thank you.
That concludes public comment for those who signed up.
Do we have any that signed up before to be online?
The person who signed up online has since left the meeting.
Oh, okay. So Councilmember Page is asking if there's anyone else in the audience.
Yeah, I
who
think it
hasn't-
might be worthwhile to ask if anyone else in the audience wishes to speak that was not able to sign up.
So who would be next? Do they need to sign up now, or they just go up? Okay, go on up.
And I'm sorry, if you would, just state your name.
Yes. I'm Audrey Meyer. I spoke about a month and a half ago about what I was seeing when I was in LA area visiting family. And I was trying to stress the point of ICE coming here, and some of us here are, sorry, I'm very nervous, have been trained through the Washington Immigrant and Solidarity Network to be rapid responders, so people can call a hotline through Wizen if they see ICE activity. And then we can go and let people know what their rights are, monitor, report, try to help if contacts family members. We know that ICE they're doing illegal things
so that then lawyers can also help with trying to get these people back to their family members. So because of being a part of this, there's calls that are coming in, and people have been detained nearby in Linwood, in Bothell. It's happening. ICE is the problem. So I really hope that you'll reconsider your vote. And if you won't do that right now, with the two different kinds of oversight committees that you're looking at, it needs to be more than just Flock, because we need to be talking about how we are going to deal with ICE in our city. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Hi all, you all know me, Victor Eskenazi. I'd like to apologize. I'm sure you're all very, very tired of hearing all these complaints about flock and surveillance. So I'm going to take a slightly different tact. I'm going to let you know one of the things I've heard from council members, that there was this concern about safety, which to me is really a nebulous thing. It varies. Probably the safest you're going to be, probably the most safe are animals in most of the zoos, where they're locked up and they're kept under protection. Other than that, once you come out of your mother's womb, safety varies, and there's no guarantee. We all do our best to protect ourselves and those we love, but we can't do it all. And there seems to be this confusion between safety and constant surveillance of everything we think or do or say. And by even standing here, I know this will be available on the internet, so I'm losing some of my safety there. But you're also concerned about DEI, which I know that's a trigger word for people and the algorithms on the internet. However, with diversity, I've heard for a long time, for decades, I've heard that a certain class of people have been concerned about being arrested for driving while black. In today's world, I've also heard people are really concerned about being arrested for walking while brown. And we know once you're arrested by these brave, proud people hiding behind their masks, so they're so proud that they refuse to let the public know who they are. And they come up in groups and attack someone and ship them off. Who knows? Once they're out of the public's eye, who knows what happens to them. But anyway, so please think about, when you think about safety and diversity, we cannot stop the constant surveillance. There's no way we're going to stop that. But that doesn't mean we have to purposely contribute to it. So if you're really concerned about diversity, think about being arrested for walking while brown. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Hi, my name is Ariel Leon, and I've been a resident of Mountlake Terrace for 5 years now. I didn't come up with anything prepared, but I truly don't think that any of you really understand what this technology can do, and or possibly don't care to understand. Once our data go out, it's out. Like, once it's in a database, somebody can access that, somebody could give it to somebody. I mean, it's not safe. And I don't think that given this time, I know a lot of the community here has echoed this as well, we don't feel safe, especially with a lot of the technology companies and what they're doing. And I just don't think that we should be inviting this into our home. That's how it feels. This is our home. And I don't trust that an oversight committee is going to help. Again, like I said, once you have that data, it's gone. I also know that there are a lot of people out there, like my husband and I was really grateful that all of you were fighting for this on June 5th because we were working and just couldn't make it out. And I know that there are a lot of citizens like myself who probably really want to be here. And I hope that I can speak for them too, but I just really hope that you reconsider this. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, I think. So are you going to make, does anyone, before we go on to this, does anyone here have anything to say? Okay. Mayor Tamwal.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Let me start by saying thank you for being here, sharing your thoughts and your concerns. While you may disagree with the decision that was made, we do hear you. That's why we're hearing from you today, have opened this up, this conversation. And in working with many of you that have been concerned about this, what I understand is, first of all, we're not questioning our police. Our police have a bond with our community and share our values. The fear is what other agencies, particularly ICE and federal government, may do. And I agree with the comments about putting guardrails on, providing oversight, transparency. I think there's a number of different things that we can be doing. One of it is deciding how the oversight body is, whether it should be the Community Policing Advisory Board, a subcommittee of DEI. Either way, I think if it's a community advisory board, it needs to be updated. And part of the update should probably include some specific parameters regarding implementation of FLOC and how we're auditing and reviewing the audits and some specific metrics in place as part of that training. But actually changing the code, if we're going to reconstitute the Community Policing Advisory Board, on the other hand, we go with the DEI subcommittee, I think what I've heard is that it's important to include others outside of just DEI. So there's other voices that are being heard, particularly hearing, again, I think a lot of this is about transparency and ensuring that the data is used the way we intended when we adopted it and not misused and abused. And because I believe we have nothing to hide, I want to put those parameters in place to be able to reassure our community and rebuild that trust as best we can to show how the data is actually being used and also put parameters in place. For instance, so I think there's key areas. There's the oversight body, whatever form that's going to take. There's the memorandum of understanding, the agreement that we're making with outside agencies that have access to the data, and putting some guardrails in the MOUs, memorandum of understandings, to ensure that it's not being misused or used in a way outside of what this council adopted it for, the safety and tracking or finding lost individuals, right? People that are, so I think that's specifically what we adopted it for and not to be used in any other way. And so putting in parameters and guardrails in the memorandum of understanding, strengthening the policy that, 617, the police policy, how our police are actually going to use the system. And the other area is strengthening the statement of our values coming from council to the community that we do hear you, we share your concerns, and we're going to, and putting in that value statement the parameters for which, you know, we're going to protect your rights and values and the things that we all have in common. So things like in the value statement, there's already references, but strengthening that reference to show exactly what we are concerned about and what we're going to, and what a little more specificity as to what we're going to do. I could go into more detail, but I think we all got the email from Dustin. I think he lays it out very well. And so that gives some specific ideas of what we want to incorporate. If necessary, I'd be happy to read it into the record, but I think we all have taken a look at it and understand what's in there. And so those are some of the key areas that I'd really like to see us explore. Again, there's really at least 4 different areas: the oversight body, the value statement, the MOUs, and the policy, police policy implementation policy. And again, just putting more clarity and assurance in how it's being used and how it's not to be used, and protections against it being misused, and transparency so that we are all aware, the community and this body is aware of what we're getting out of the system, and if it is ever misused, and being able to protect against that. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. I want to touch on a few things here. First of all, again, thanks everyone for being here. And, we heard the word trust. I heard the word trust, a lot, today. And, and I genuinely am sorry that, there are those of you that feel like we broke that trust. I broke that trust. I'm sorry that you feel that way. I feel strongly that, this system will help, do the things, that we're hoping that we want it to do. I do believe that. And I also believe that, there are miscreants out there that is going to take advantage of the system, whether it's Mountlake, Terrace, Linwood, Edmonds, or wherever else they are in Snoqualmie or King County or wherever. I believe that they're out there. They're out there. I'm not preaching to the choir, but I really believe, though, that I don't think there was anybody's intent, and they can correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think there was anybody's intent, to shutter their ears to you and say, I don't care. I know I didn't. And, there's a lot that I could say about all of that, but this isn't the time or the place, So I'm going to talk about the 3 things that I have written down from what you just talked about. The value statement. And I've been thinking about that value statement a lot and what's in it and the purpose of it when it was asked of us. And I think that this value statement, as it is written, focuses too much on flock, because that was the catalyst, that asked for this statement. But it could be anything else that comes up that maybe folks don't like. And then how good is that statement? I think that value statement should speak to what exactly it is that we're trying to say. And that value statement should say, I'm sorry that you felt like we don't listen to you. we recognize that there is diversity in this city. It's going to grow when it gets up to another 13 to 20,000 in the next 20 years. And damn it, we're going to make sure, that we're doing everything that we can to not just be safe, but make you feel safe. To me, that's what a value statement looks like. I think that anything else that we talk about with Flock, should be something separate. And that goes to the policy. I think I brought this up, I forget which meeting it was. I asked the question, what conversation are our police, who everyone says they love, but our city is safe because we collaborate with everybody else around us. But I did ask the question, what conversation are we having with all of those other municipalities around us in the counties, that also have Flock? And I don't like asking gotcha questions, Jeff, but I'm gonna send a gotcha question at you. Do our policy look like their policy? If we put it up side by side, are they saying the same things, on paper that we're saying? And did they have to cross it out and cut it up and make it real, for their people to feel okay with the fact that they have Flock? Because if not, then maybe that's what we need to do. We need to make sure that the paperwork looks the same, that the voices are the same, and everybody's feeling the same way. I asked that, I forget which meeting it was, but I think that's important. And then as for the DEI, I'm proud of what the DEI has done and are doing, but I'm in agreement with you all. I don't think it should be just the DEI that's involved in this. I think it should be, community members with the DEI, because that's the whole intent of the DEI. The DEI was put together not so that they could run things that has to do with, injustice and equity and inclusion, but what the intent of 25 years ago was to make sure that the DEI was engaging and getting people into City Hall, working with City Hall to make changes in City Hall. So I'm completely in agreement with the idea that, the DEI as a subcommittee has a subcommittee working with the committee members, to work on this. There's a whole bunch swarming through my head right now, and I'm not going to take up the floor, but, those are the three things that I wanted to share at this time. Give the floor back to the mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. We'll start with thank you to my colleagues up here. We are here tonight because collectively we decided this was an important topic to put back on the agenda this evening, and that was driven by those in our community who continued to show up and express their thoughts and feelings about what we were doing as a council and a community. And so I hope at least in that way, folks are feeling heard this evening. This is a direct result of all of your voices and your care and the fact that you keep showing up and you keep sharing your perspectives. So I hope that even if you are disappointed with where we landed on the contract, and hear you that many of you would like us to revisit that, hope that you feel that this is a step towards regaining some of that trust that was potentially lost and that some of you spoke to. And I appreciate my colleagues that have continued to bring ideas to the table, who support the tool, but also want to incorporate more of the community's feedback as we move forward. And so I think there's a lot of good ideas, and I appreciate both ideas that have come from council as well as the numerous ideas that have come from community. And it is significant, and I will name that it's hard to workshop some of these things from a dais in a public setting. But I appreciate where we started. I appreciated Mayor Pro Tem Wall's thoughts, and I appreciated Councilmember Page's thoughts. I would echo that I am very supportive of moving forward with an oversight committee. I will say that I initially was not sure that I thought maybe we needed something specifically just for Flock, given the amount of feedback we have gotten. And I will say, as I had a chance, I think it's one of the reasons that these conversations are really important, and learning and taking the time to be open-minded is important, because I will say, as I read what the Community Advisory Board ceased to operate before I joined this council, and as I read the information about the Community Advisory Board, I was like, oh, they were doing a lot of good things that are very consistent with our council goals and objectives, and a lot of things that candidly align very well with some of the feedback we've gotten, both in terms of what people feel like didn't happen as part of this decision-making process, and also things that people have conveyed they'd like to see happen moving forward. And one of the things I got really excited about, since we didn't, talk through the entire thing, they have very specific roles called out as part of the commission, at least as it existed then. And I do think it needs some revision to update it, and obviously some specific language around what their responsibilities would be in terms of flock oversight. But one of the things that they did really well is it was a 10-member commission. The majority of those members had to be residents of Mountlake Terrace, but there was a couple of specific positions called out that I think are really additive. One was a youth member. One of the things that I've talked about when it comes to community safety and importance around policing is our youth and youth violence, right? And so there is a position specifically called out for a high school-aged person, which I think is phenomenal. There's also business representation to ensure that our business community is included in the process. And then I think there was a school district rep, which again, I think when we talk about, an important aspect, important members of our community who aren't always represented well in these conversations, I thought that excited me. So anyway, I have become more excited about the idea of the I won't even say reinstatement, because again, we never sunsetted, but I will say the reinvigoration of a community policing advisory board. And so very supportive of figuring out what revisions that we need to make to move that forward, what steps we need to take to open recruitment and get through that process and start those meetings. And so would love to see that move forward, and I'm supportive of that. I will say thank you to our DEI commission members who, took some great steps to have conversations about what they could potentially do to help hear our community. And I think they could absolutely be valuable in these conversations. And I think the opportunity to partner the DEI Commission and not take them away from their work and their mission, as Councilmember Page pointed out, but to partner with a potential police advisory commission, I think is a really great thing that hopefully we will have the opportunity to explore moving forward. I would agree. I think continued MOUs was an area that we have gotten a ton of feedback. I don't think we've had a chance to fully incorporate all of that and take a look at a draft that incorporates that. And so I would love to make sure that that's a part of our process. I agree on the internal policy and would add specifics around our public audit process is, I think, a really key component of that, and something we've heard a lot of in terms of, I think, alleviating some of the concern about how data is being used, so there's transparency and visibility there. And then agree, I think we do need to move forward with some sort of value statement, but I would actually encourage us to look at making that a resolution. I think one of the things that I think it is one thing to have a value statement, which is important, but a resolution is something we vote on in a meeting, and I think that is an important step. Just again, given as we are talking about transparency and trust and public engagement in these processes, I think that just adds a little bit more to it. But very supportive and appreciate again all of the work that has gotten us this far, and would love to make sure that before we adjourn from this topic tonight, that we have some concrete next steps so that there is clarity both for us and for staff and for our community about what we plan to do next.
Okay, do we have next steps, or go ahead, we're doing that.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. What I suggested were looking into 4 key areas and spending some time putting specific guardrails, incorporating specific guardrails and transparency and openness into those 4 areas. I guess my ask would be whether we all have consensus around going that direction and looking at the MOUs and strengthening those, looking at the value statement and strengthening that, and or looking at a resolution, and the policy for how it's being implemented with our police, and the oversight body, whether it's bringing back the community advisory board, and then what specific things we need to, well, what updates it needs to, because we're not doing liquor licenses anymore, right? So that can come out. and some of those other areas that we are no longer involved with or doing, but then adding a specific line about what we're looking for in oversight on the flock system. And then, or if we want to go with the other recommendation from DEI and doing a subcommittee and how we might go about doing that, whether that, and including other members from the community, particularly those of you that are concerned about it, because again, the body is really about transparency and ensuring that it's not, the data and information is not being misused, right? So we want to make sure those of you that are concerned about how it's being used are involved in the process and you have that information to be able to share and help us rebuild that trust. So I guess those are the key 4 areas that I can think of for us to spend additional time on and putting some guardrails and parameters on.
Mayor, so, and this maybe Jeff or Hillary can answer this question. I know one of the big items on here is MOUs. And where do we stand on the ability to be able to make sure that the MOUs speak to what we feel is going to make sure that what we want this process to look like and feel like can actually happen? What has to happen there?
So the way it's currently structured, it says, you know, what the permissible uses are, and if the data is misused once by any agency that we partner with, then their access to it is immediately revoked. Same is true for individuals, whether in our police department, well, if it's another agency, the entire agency would be revoked. But if it's in our police department, then that individual's access would be removed, among other things.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I was just going to follow up. Yes, I mean, I think that the MOU draft that we've seen has a lot of good stuff in it, but we've also seen some great suggestions that I have no problem with from Dustin and those of you that have been talking to us about the issues. I think there's some additional areas that we can that again are clearly laid out in the email and in his musings. And I've kind of collected that and can share that with the city manager. But that's really what we've collected, hearing from our residents that are concerned, that for a good starting point for discussion for specific areas that can be adopted into the MOUs, the policy, and value statement resolution, and the oversight body.
Okay. So, did you have any more?
Well, I mean, I kind of, the reason why I brought that one up, because it seems like that's the easiest question, you know, of the other 3 things. The MOU, the way it's worded, or some of them the way they're worded. You know, I just wanted to know, are we in a position where that can be adjusted? I don't know if that's a yes or no question, or maybe, or that's why I know Hillary's in the meeting. That's the point of my question, because that seems to be the easiest of the 4. You know, is there room for adjustment for the MOUs? That's the question I'm asking.
So if I could just jump in here. Typically, MOUs are the provenance of the city manager, and it is not a policy question. My ethical rules as part of the ICMA require me to protect our areas, right? Our areas of responsibility, and make sure that policy is the area of the council, and administration is my responsibility. I would welcome suggestions without stepping across the line of what my ethical responsibilities require to what you'd like to see in the MOU. However, that is typically an administration piece. So, you know, we can thread that needle, I think. if that answers your question.
I think so. Like I said, that was the easy one. Yeah. So I guess the other part of it is, are we going to discuss tonight, what we want to see with this council, with this group, the advisory group, the other stuff? I mean, how do we go forward here? Or how do we want to go forward?
Are we going to make that decision tonight?
So what I think I've heard, and I don't think that any final decision is necessary tonight, but what I think I've heard is that there is a consensus of council members that wish to reconstitute the advisory board, and that there is a consensus of council members that would like to ensure that the policy language that's in place currently is reviewed, I guess is a good way to put it, including some of the suggestions from our community about what that language looks like. And the final piece is that we should have a resolution of our statement of values, the statement that the city put out last week or the week before, but that is turned into a resolution with a few tweaks. So that's what I think I heard. If I am incorrect on any of those points, let me know. But if I am, then I think what we'll do is I'll take the information that I heard, present it to all of you to make sure it accurately reflects what your desires are, and then we can come back and have a formal adoption of that statement of values at another meeting in, I don't know when, but it won't be very long. So if I'm wrong on any of that, let me know.
Well, I'm going to do an ask, and if I'm out of line, just let me know. I'm new to this. But I know we do have the DEI chair here, and he's also a former member of the advisory group. I'm just curious as to what, your thoughts are regarding the makeup of, this advisory group. And I'm sorry if I'm putting you on the spot, and if I'm not supposed to do this, let me know.
Yeah, I think what we can do, for that is put together the information, because of course, Chair Matsuda has a lot of information, but there is also information from our police department. We can put that together at the same time frame, along with a proposed probably structure of what the training might look like for new members, and then set a schedule for the council to interview members or potential members of the advisory board, and then set a date for its start again. Or restart, I guess.
All right, Mayor Pro Tem Wall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So yes, I generally agree with the 3 steps you mentioned, and appreciate the interest in getting more feedback as to which approach may be best, and having a conversation. I mean, personally, I was disappointed years ago when we disbanded the Community Policing Advisory Board, because I thought they had a lot of great ideas of what we could be doing in outreach and engagement with the community, and building, and I think they played a role in building the trust with our police department. And so I think, and then we also, one of our goals is to be informed and engaged, and so we're looking for opportunities for our community to be involved and engaged in the role that the city plays, right? So I like personally the idea of the Community Policing Advisory Board, but I'm open to the subcommittee of DEI. So I'd love to hear feedback as to which approach is best. The other area that I appreciate, so the 4th area that we had mentioned was the MOUs, the agreements with other entities. And I appreciate that that is an administrative role, not a legislative role. I do ask that you review the ideas that have been brought forward and let us know what's appropriate to include, to update, to be able to build in better parameters. Because I think, personally, I think the agreements is the most important part of all of this. The other stuff is for transparency and sharing with you all what it's being used for the most part. But the agreements is, but the fear is what other agencies may do or use, how they may use the data, right? So the agreements for how they can use the data is very important, putting some clear parameters within and guidelines within the agreement with those other agencies is, I think, important for us to at least review and let us know that, and assure the community that we're going to get what we want.
So essentially what the MOU is a reflection of the policy you adopt. But I will, of course, welcome suggestions.
Mayor, Councilmember Murray.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate it. Jeff, I guess follow-up question on the MOUs, because I want to make sure that I understand what can be done and like what we prefer not to be done, because I think sometimes those are not one and the same, right? And so in terms of MOUs, I would agree with Mayor Pro Tem Wall. It's probably the one piece of those four that actually has the ability to prevent some of the things that people are concerned about. There is opportunity, I think, for lots of good oversight and connectivity and engagement, which is important, and transparency, if I didn't say that. You know, and the MOUs are really important, and candidly, you know, it would have been nice had that been part of the kind of process earlier, but those haven't received edits and updates, right? At least not based on community feedback, from my understanding. And so you've seen the same things I think we've all seen at this point. We've all received the same public comments and feedback. I guess, is it your intention to go back and review those and incorporate things that you think could help our community to be more heard, potentially reduce harm, and reduce concerns, and then bring that back to us, if not for approval, so that there is transparency and understanding of what that MOU says before it is actively being signed?
So as I mentioned a moment ago, the MOU is just a reflection of the policy. So it's an implementation of the policy decision that you all make. So if council works on the policy, which is clearly in council's arena,
okay.
Council works on the policy and the statement of values and those kind of things, that will be reflected in the MOU that is used with other agencies.
Okay. Thank you.
I don't add any of my own editorial comments to that. That is simply implementation of council policy.
Okay.
Anyone else before we go back to Councilmember Woodard?
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to go back in time and thank Councilmember Murray for voting no. And I'm going to acknowledge I think, demonstrated what I heard no one did, at least from one, and I heard another say, no, I heard some council members object to implementing this, but just want to go on record for fear that my silence isn't read as thoughtful leadership this time. And just, again, also say some of the energy that I've heard tonight had it been in the earlier conversation, we might not be in this situation perhaps, but here we are. So just want to go on record as saying, I still don't think we should have this, even though as an individual, I think we could. But as your representative, you've said no, and so here we find ourselves. Just wanted to reiterate that because no one looks back. We just go, the council said no, but let's nuance that. Not all the council said no. Now that said, we got a lot of ways to which we can mitigate whatever it is our decision was in the name of the residents, in the name of safety, in the name of whatever we said. However, I also want to acknowledge, I feel like there's another step that we can do that will actually show we're listening to you, which is we had at least one resident come and share a resource that they took their own time to go into and look into and took a risk by even saying they're a part of that into the public record. So that said, I'd like for this city to demonstrate that not only do we value what we heard, we value how you spent your time, and we want to make sure that more people, if they look to the city resource, can learn about these opportunities, because that's all they are. We advertise all kind of things except for businesses, and this is not a business. This is about keeping residents safe, which was the theme that went through everybody who's crossed that podium across the way there. And I don't think we've addressed that. So I would ask for a fifth opportunity here, which is, can we gather what we've been hearing, both in email as well as in person, as well as perhaps do some research and invite people to share. What are some resources that can combat this concern over ICE, as well as over surveillance, and just in general, who's going to watch the Oversight Committee? Because I'm sure that's the next question. So we got the diverse 10, but who's watching them? So let's go ahead and get ahead of that one too.
So thank you for that. So all the organizations that were mentioned tonight, among others, and all the resources that are available are part of Welcoming Week, which is September 20th from 11 to 3. We provide all those, and I believe we started sponsoring Welcoming Week 2 years ago. So we have been doing those things and making sure they're widely shared, but we will work to ensure that
I
they're shared
appreciate
more
that
widely.
for sure. I'm just saying, make sure we're intentional and make that a fifth step, if you will. That shows it's not coincidental, it's interrelated.
Sure.
So, thank you.
Okay, Tim Wall, did you have any more? Okay.
I mean, since you give me a microphone, but yeah, I guess I thank you again for sharing your concerns. I'm pleased that we're going to be able to move forward to help address those concerns. Maybe not you're fully by rescinding the flock policy, or cameras, but reassuring you that we hear your fear of other agencies, and feel good that we're going to look at ways that we can protect our residents from other agencies misusing our data. So I'm looking forward to continuing the conversation, hearing from you. Between now and whenever we look at the oversight body, whether it's a Community Policing Advisory Board or DEI subcommittee, I'd love to hear your feedback as to if there's an approach you would prefer, you think may be best. If you're, and then, I mean, I think, and if you haven't seen the comments that have been compiled from our residents, working with Dustin and Audrey and others, that I would encourage you to take a look at that and see if there's any additional feedback that you'd like to provide us. But I think we've got some good momentum going forward to address some of the concerns, and hoping we can rebuild the trust. Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to come back to this at
Yeah, we don't have a meeting date yet. I don't know how long it's going to take to prepare these materials, but we'll announce it and make sure
All
that
right.
that's widely shared.
we have Councilmember Ryan here. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. In opening, I'd say I agree to any oversight committee, whether it's in the DEI or if we open up a police advisory board again. That's all for me. That's very good. I used to be on the police advisory board, and I'm sorry it went away. But I'd recommend, I'd like to hear us recommend the council to revisit the Mountlake Terrace Police Department Policy 617 and analyze each paragraph. Purpose and scope, policy, definitions, authorized use, restricted use, accountability and safeguards, system audits, and data collection and retention. And then bring to the city manager or the council some specific things that you'd like to see there. So we just don't have a general, we don't have anything to go by. If we could get some specifics, that'd be good. This is available online for our citizens to take a look at. That's the Mountlake Terrace one. I have other recommendations that Everett Police Department's using in their city. And, but I really recommend, I like the idea of being transparent with a system because it increases accountability, it increases public awareness, and it increases community engagement. And if we could all be on that page and with that, that'd be great. And the thing we will have at least is a flock safety, what was I going to say? It's an open portal that everybody can tune into on the web. And one thing I really liked about Everett was not only do they have the open portal, but they have a flock safety camera report. And you can click each month exactly what they're doing. And I thought it was really interesting because Everett started in October of 2024. And as of June, they have decreased their stolen vehicles by 70.68%. And I thought that was interesting. And you can go online and look for that. And you could go to any city in Washington and look up their portal. It's usually just policy and, you know, what they did in this, but I really liked how Everett did this, and they did specifically what they did. And I really like that about the stolen vehicles. So anyway, I have those recommendations, and thank you.
All right, anyone else before we move on? Oh, did you have something? Pardon?
If we're done tonight with this discussion, assuming council's done speaking, take a 5 or 10 minute break.
Yes, I was going to recommend that too. Okay, so we're done with this section. We're going to take a 5-minute break. We'll be back. Shall we take a 7-minute break and be back at 8:45?
Yep.
All right, we'll be back at 8:45. Okay, we're back in session, and the next item on our agenda is a presentation on the community, oops, wrong one. Yes, presentation on the community engagement plan with our Deputy City Manager, Carolyn Hope, and our Communications and Outreach, Community Outreach Manager, Sienna Spencer-Marcos.
Thank you, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, City Council members, community. So glad to be with you tonight. This is a plan that we've been working on for over a year now. This started with our diversity, equity, and inclusion plan that the VITA agency was helping us with. They started the basic community engagement plan, and staff have been working to build upon that and create a comprehensive community engagement plan that is clear to our staff on how to use the best procedures, meets the City Council's goals, and helps our community understand where we're headed. And just a little more about the purpose. The Council, of course, has identified an informed, engaged community as a priority in the strategic plan. And under that plan, there was an actual action item to create a community engagement plan. So this is an outcome of that. And obviously, cities are part of our democratic process and helping to encourage our community to participate in policy decisions, project decisions, and programs that we're developing as an agency. And as our community grows and changes, we have to keep adapting our engagement approach. And so this is our first attempt. We are considering this a live operational document that will continue to update as we learn and grow in the process. And going back to the strategic plan, just wanted to focus on some of the action items that are related to this plan. One is Council's very interested in making sure that our community is engaged in infrastructure improvements needed to accommodate growth, that we adapt and update the communications plan and the community engagement plan to ensure the city receives a representative audience, and to develop and implement a community ambassadors program to inspire more community leaders with connections in government. And we'll be talking about those tonight. There are other reasons that we have a community engagement plan as well. 2 federal laws require us to plan for how we engage with our community. One is the Americans with Disabilities Act, or the ADA, which require us to have reasonable accommodations for both physical access and other means of communicating and participating in our governmental processes. Also, Title VI of the Civil Rights Act requires us to participate in, it's a federal program, and the reason that we're participating in that is because we as an agency receive federal dollars, and so we're required as a whole agency, not just in transportation or any other program that receives the federal funds. We're required as a whole agency to comply with this section of the Civil Rights Act. And that means that we need to ensure that no person, regardless of their race, color, national origin, or or a disability even, is denied of benefits of participating in the governmental process or programs. There are also a lot of state laws and our own policies and guidance documents that require or encourage community engagement. Some of the requirements relate to the State Environmental Policy Act, or SEPA, where we're required to have public notices, offer opportunities for people to comment. There's requirements for public engagement through the Growth Management Act, which we just experienced with the Comprehensive Plan update. We have the Open Public Meetings Act, and so forth. Our code also requires and encourages different forms of engagement and public notice as well. And of course, we have grants and partnership agreements, which may also have requirements. I'm going to hand it over to Sienna.
Yes, hi. So our 3 key goals with this community engagement plan are, number 1, to have a real long-term overview of our community engagement goals for our capital projects, our large-scale projects, so that we know in advance when we're planning our biannual budgets what we may need later on down the road throughout a multi-year project, throughout the milestones. We want to plan that in advance. We want to plan it from the start. Sometimes engagement requires costs. A lot of time it requires time and advanced planning, such as hiring ambassadors or translators, printing materials. So we want to make sure that we include that in our budget for the overall scope of the project. And we also, with this plan, want to collaborate together with all the departments across the city so that we make sure that we're timing the engagement efforts relative to each other. We don't want to fatigue our community with too many asks all at once. We don't want to have a lot of surveys or a lot of polls or a lot of requests for feedback all happening at the same time. So the intent is to create a kind of master calendar so we can strategically schedule those engagement efforts throughout the year.
Great. And next, we're going to talk about some tips on leading community engagement activities. This is, like I said, an operational document. So these are tips for our staff or our volunteers on our commissions, ambassadors, and so forth. So the first is to be really clear about why we're doing engagement. And strangely, you might think this should be obvious, but sometimes it isn't. So just really thinking about what it is we want to bring to the community. Are we asking them questions? Are we asking them to be part of the vision and idea generation part of the project? We also want to be clear about who we are asking these questions to. So sometimes it's the broader community, but also sometimes when it's a very specific project or program that's directed at a certain group of people, it might be a little more specific. We may always want to invite the larger community, but we also may want to make sure that we're reaching certain members of our community. And then the timing of these efforts is also really important to think about ahead of time. Today, Sienna and I were just talking about how a capital project could last for decades. You know, like we talk about the planning in a certain plan that was, you know, a town center plan that might have been adopted 20 years ago. And then we start design, and then it takes years and years to get the capital money, and then we get the design done, and then it might take another year or two for construction to occur. So there's all these different points in time when we need to communicate to the public about this project. And every time it might have a slightly different reason. There might be a slightly different group that we need to make sure we're engaging with. And so it's just important to think about these things ahead of time. It's also important to share with the community who makes the final decision and when that's going to occur. So obviously we want to share all of the data we collect with you if you're the final decision maker, which is often the case, and that there may be opportunities for the community to come to the City Council and share their opinion about the project, program, or policy. The other opportunity for staff to be thinking about is developing an understanding of their audience. And so again, thinking that our community is quite diverse, how are we going to reach out to this broader community who have different cultural perspectives, different languages they might speak, maybe they have different norms as far as their working hours, where they like to meet, where it might feel more comfortable for them to meet. And also developing engagement opportunities around those specific groups. So we just want to make sure that people feel comfortable to engage with the city, and that might mean that all our meetings are not here in this room. Even though we built this as a community engagement opportunity, it also might mean that some people don't feel comfortable coming to a city building. And so how can we think outside the box and how to reach people better? One thing that we've been working on quite a bit over the last couple of years, especially with the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Commission, is establishing more relationships in our community. And this is an ongoing process that we need to do as staff, as commissioners, as council members, and just reaching out to different groups within our community to expand our knowledge about our diverse community members, and make sure that more people who historically haven't been engaged in the civic process become more engaged, and that we find ways to make that a comfortable and trusting place. And then we need to be always thinking about being open to learning. And so staff especially come to the table having researched something for sometimes years and are considered an expert in their field. And then you go out to the community and we have to like open our mind to the idea that there are other perspectives, that other people might have great ideas, and that we need to, I mean, the reason for the engagement is to collect ideas. So how do we like bring those ideas back to the table and be open-minded about how those ideas could be incorporated or not into the process? And then also other ways of being open to learning are evaluating our engagement activities for effectiveness. And as I mentioned earlier, just adapting those procedures over time. So just to wrap this up on things to think about as we go out into the world of engagement is being transparent and earning the trust of our community through transparency. By being clear and open about what the process is in the beginning, who makes that decision, and what we're doing with the data. A lot of that is about reporting out what we heard as well. Being collaborative and having a shared purpose with the community, and having a commitment to act. And that could mean just sharing data. It doesn't necessarily mean we're going to act on every comment that someone makes to us, but we have a commitment to take in that information, to record it, and to share it with those that it needs to be shared with, the decision makers. And then Sienna's going to talk a little bit about sustained engagement and that participatory culture.
So here's a 5-step framework that illustrates the communications loop when it comes to community engagement. And these steps are in order. So the first one is planning for the engagement, which is what this is all about, planning as far in advance as possible. And being nimble and pivoting if necessary, but starting to talk about engagement ideas right at the beginning of a project. And then the strategic marketing of the engagement is the second step, and that involves so many different things, digitally, print, key messaging, discussions with stakeholders, departments, residents, whoever is involved, participating, or affected by the project. The third step is the most exciting, of course, engagement. Look how busy that person is engaging. And that can come in many forms, and we'll get into that in a couple slides from now. The fourth step is sharing the outcomes of engagement, which Carolyn just touched on. Being transparent, putting a button on it, giving people some closure. They were nice enough to provide feedback, and it's nice for us to share the outcome of that feedback with the public. And then the fifth step is just continuing that loop and always delivering on these steps so that people can trust us to communicate with them.
So we wanted to take a moment and talk a little bit about our changing demographics. Some of this data has changed from the comprehensive plan look at demographics 2 years ago, with the ACS data being updated regularly. So as you know, our demographics from the cultural and ethnic perspective are changing rapidly. We are now almost 40% people of color in our community, and 18% or so are foreign-born, and 1 in 4 people speak a language other than English at home. So one big part of this communications plan is to look at people who speak other languages, and it doesn't automatically translate to the ethnic and cultural background. So we're talking about people who may not speak English well. And so a lot of people who come from different cultures may speak English very well. And so what we're trying to suss out in this is who needs support with language services. And in that research that we pulled, Spanish speakers are the #1 group, followed by the 4 other languages there: Korean, Chinese, Arabic, and Tagalog. And so the one language that we're going to focus on translating the most is Spanish, and we have a language access plan that is part of this plan that expands on that a little bit more. So a couple other demographic items to be considered are median household income, renters, the number of renters that we have. So just considering that some people who are lower income may not have the opportunity to participate. Maybe they work at night, maybe they work 2 jobs, maybe they can't afford to get a babysitter for their children. So just thinking about ways that we can incorporate people from all of the spectrums of our community in the process is part of this plan as well. Also thinking about internet access. We do have, most people do have access to internet, but there's a small percentage of people who don't. So being prepared to support those who cannot access the internet. And also, as we spoke about earlier, we're trying to comply with our federal laws related to ADA and civil rights. 9% of our population is considered disabled in different ways. And of course, we have a lot of veterans who live here as well. So as we plan for events, we need to be considerate of those needs that we just talked about, including the accessibility of the place that we're going to have the meeting, whether people need support with hearing devices, if there's an opportunity to support people with visual aids, talking about the timing of the event, providing childcare or child activities at the meeting for people to bring their children if they need to, providing food and promoting the place that is convenient for the stakeholders. So if we're really focused on a project in the north end of town, it might be worthwhile finding a location in the north end of town for the meeting, like a school. We did a meeting at a school for the comp plan. Maybe there's an apartment building that has a community room that we could host a meeting at. So just thinking differently about how we can access people. Then we also want to talk about our stakeholders' needs for translation and interpretation. Those are things that we need to accommodate when requested, and also for us to think about as we are considering different services. So for example, maybe Chinese speakers who represent a smaller portion of our population who have language access troubles for English language, maybe we are seeing an influx of those folks coming to our recreation programs and having trouble communicating with our front desk staff or our lifeguards or our instructors. That might be something that we should think about as far as language access and thinking about translating materials or seeing if they need other language support during the program. So there could be opportunities to support that kind of activity in a program. If we're doing a community meeting, one thing that Sian and I have been testing in some recent meetings is asking people to RSVP, and within that RSVP, asking if they would like an interpreter present for them. So it's expensive to provide some of these services, and we're mindful of that. We're just trying to think of ways that we can accommodate people and be mindful of our budget.
So now I'll walk us through the 4 principles of community engagement, and I'm sure we're all pretty familiar with these. There is the convey, consume, the contribute, the collaborate, and the co-create. And we'll get into the details here. So the first principle of engagement is to convey, and this is our proactive effort. So all of the information that we share out from the city to the people, that includes all of our communications channels, all of our social media channels, our quarterly newsletter, all of our press releases, our website, of course, any advertising we do, tabling at events, printed materials, collateral, and our valued media partners, our media outlets who we work with to cover the news that that's happening here. We also can use briefings and press conferences. So these are all the tools that we have in our communications toolbox to spread awareness and amplify our news. The second principle for engagement is methods of contributing. So these are things we do all the time. We engage with community using polls and surveys, online and digital methods, in-person methods at events, our public meetings, individual emails, phone calls, and even social media comments and messages. This is where we are proactively seeking or requesting feedback. We want ideas. We are asking for engagement and recording those responses to work it into whatever project we're planning. The third method is collaboration. So this is deliberately and strategically working with the community, alongside the community, to develop proposals for decision makers. These can be charrettes when working with design. These can be workshops, interviews, and community contributions. The fourth is co-create. So methods of co-creating when it comes to engagement is maybe this was a community initiative, a grassroots initiative, a community-led idea or project, and the city is supporting it, and it's lending support in terms of marketing, in terms of whatever support they may need to shepherd the project to the final destination.
So some of the appendices in the engagement plan are listed here, and we're going to walk you through those. The first is the language access plan, which I mentioned just a minute ago. The requirements for this are to ensure that limited English proficiency speakers have meaningful access to language assistance when requested. Also, that we do this needs assessment, which we did, that showed you the 5 languages that are predominantly LEP populations here. We actually don't meet the threshold for interpretation, which is 5% of the population or 1,000 people, but the Spanish language speakers are very close, and I think it's worth continuing in that realm of and translating some of those materials more prominently. Language assistance can mean oral or written language, and also sign or some other type of interpretation for those with hearing disabilities. We also should take reasonable steps to address the needs of LEP individuals when requested and avoiding discrimination. So if there are, a really great example of avoiding discrimination would be if we were doing a project in a neighborhood that was predominantly Latino and we didn't make an effort to provide translated materials or ask for if people needed interpretation, that might be a sign of discrimination in that neighborhood. And the photos here, we'll talk a little bit at the end. Sienna was going to give you a demonstration of our website. We have some new tools we want to share with you that make our website Title VI compliant. And at the bottom, there's a photo from Welcoming Week last year where we had an interpreter, the man on the left who was supporting a family throughout the event so that they could learn about all the services available. The community engagement project plan is a really important component of this plan. So there's a template in the appendix where staff are going to be asked to figure out what kind of engagement they need for their project before we do the budget for the next biennium. And the important part of that, as Sienna mentioned earlier, is planning ahead so we know we have enough funding to do the community engagement component, that we're not forgetting a major component, like we need to think about translation or we need to think about hosting a number of meetings throughout the project, and that they're thinking of all these questions that we talked about earlier. So this is a really important part of the program, and it will identify the tools, the budget, and the internal stakeholders that should be involved in the project. The Community Ambassadors Program, this is something Council has been asking for a couple of years. And what we've done is identified 2 different groups of people. One is called Community Ambassadors, and one are Trusted Community Liaisons. And I'll explain the 2 here for you tonight. The first that we're proposing is Community Ambassadors being a committee of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Commission who could support the commission and any staff community engagement project that is out there. So right now the DEI Commission's been doing a lot of that work. We could use more help. And also we really have some great ideas moving forward, whether it's community conversations or getting the word out about meetings we have coming up this month, for example, about transportation projects, about LTAC funding, you name it. There's always a need to expand on how we reach people and get the word out. So these folks would be volunteers who serve on a subcommittee. They would be trained and they would get briefings on projects before they go out in the field to do the work. So they could be supporting tabling at events, like I said, going out and encouraging people to participate in a project or facilitating conversations like we have had our commissioners doing at community conversations. The other group, Trusted Community Liaisons, we would propose to do later. We'd like to kick off Community Ambassadors first and think about the right time for this to occur. This one would require some funding, and the idea is to essentially hire community members who speak one of our key languages so Spanish, Chinese, Vietnamese, you name it, and have a really deep connection into that community here in Mountlake Terrace. So they're already seen by their community members as trusted leaders. They're bilingual, and we would hire them to help us understand how to better reach that community and co-create community engagement plans together, and also co-create a plan on how we build relationships better with that community. So we would be developing specific work plans for each of the liaisons, a budget, and they would get paid for their work. And then there are stipends. This is a new policy proposal that would be used not all the time, but the staff would have to think critically in their project plans about when it would be appropriate to use stipends. But some examples would be, there might be certain groups we're really trying to reach and they're just not coming to meetings. And to encourage them to come either by providing a stipend to people who attend those meetings, which could be voluntary for people to accept. So if you felt like you didn't need one, you wouldn't have to take one. And it also could be used for focus groups. It could be used by our ambassadors or trusted community liaisons to encourage people to take a survey or a poll. It could be used for a temporary advisory committee. Those are the kinds of examples. It doesn't, like I said, it doesn't have to be used broadly, and it would have to be built into the budget of someone's project community engagement plan. And that proposal, the stipend proposal, would have to be approved by their director. So there is precedent for this by the state and several agencies around our area who are doing this. And the stipends are typically about $50 an hour, but that doesn't have to be the case for everything. So in some areas we could use a gift card of say $25 for like a simple survey. It doesn't have to, maybe it doesn't take a whole hour to fill something out. It could also be used as sort of like a raffle, like, the first 5 people who come to the meeting get a stipend, or you put your name in a hat and maybe you'll win a gift card if you come. So there's different ways you can do it, but this has been successful in areas where we have communities who historically haven't participated. Maybe they can't afford to spend the time like we talked about earlier, or they feel their time is very valuable and that they have lived experience that they're willing to share, but that it's not free.
And here's a visual guide. It's kind of a version of the community conversations interactive boards that we've been using at those in-person interactive events. And it's basically a communications tool. It's a little bit of education about what services the city does and does not do. It's a little bit about volunteering and connecting. Our social media and our website and our contact information is on here, and our goals for connecting with the community and letting them know that we encourage engagement. And this can be used in so many different ways, digitally and print, and it can be available in many different versions. So this is just an example of some community engagement tools. And then just to summarize, the goal of this overall community engagement plan is to, going forward, hopefully across all city departments, touch on all of these different strategies and engagement right from the beginning and have them all built into our project plans. And the next steps, we would love your feedback. If you have any questions, we have shopped around this draft to several departments already, including Public Works, Parks, and CED to get their feedback. And once all the feedback is incorporated, we will start using the plan. And we have a shorter version that is specifically for projects, and we have a lot of projects coming up that we could use the plan for. And I'd like to just take a minute to walk you through a couple of cool new tools that we have on our site. I'm going to stop sharing this for a second. Okay, so you may recognize this. This is our website, cityofmlt.com. I just wanted to walk you through a couple of accessibility tools, just so you can be aware of them and share them with residents. So if we scroll down, and this is both on your computer and on your phone, you'll see this happy little person, this little icon here. And this is called Audio Eye. It's a new platform that we just activated through our website hosting platform, Civic Plus. And it's a trusted and certified digital platform to increase accessibility across all content of our website. And I'll show you just a couple of bells and whistles, and you can, again, do this on your phone. But it's meant to address the needs of different people, anyone who might be visiting our site. You can see that you can enlarge the text. You can change the spacing for better readability. You can change the font so that it addresses dyslexic needs if you have those. There are color and contrast options for people who have colorblind issues. There's also, I'm going to go to a page that has a lot of text on it. There's a couple of cool options that you can use to read some more dense copy on a page. There's a highlighting window, and then there's a toolbar. If you find that helpful when you're reading a lot of copy, it kind of guides you up and down the page. You can also highlight the headings of a page. And there's different versions of this. You can highlight everything or just certain things. Those are just some of the tools. There's also keyboard shortcuts if you're on your computer. You can also report an issue. So right from your phone, if you are navigating our website and you find something that's broken or something that's not loading or something you can't read or something you can't click on, you can just report it right here. The Audio Eye system has both an AI automatic feature combined with actual real people who are accessibility experts. So we have 24/7 help desk, and the Audio Eye program is constantly monitoring, auditing, and scanning our website and fixing, just auto-fixing a lot of common issues. So it's really good for everyone. It's good for our SEO. I'm going to minimize that just for a second. Oh yeah, wanted to mention, so this Audio Eye is a trusted certification, which means that it makes our website Title VI compliant. It meets all of the requirements automatically. So this little icon immediately and instantly shows anyone visiting our site, that we are ADA compliant. So I'm going to minimize that. You can have fun with that on your own time. And I'm going to switch over to our Google Translate capabilities. And some of you may know we have this, some of you may not, but it's a really cool and very easy feature to use. I'm going to scroll down to Spanish. You can access this little Google Translate search bar on the homepage, and it immediately translates our copy and our content into the language that you've selected, with the exception of certain graphics and images, but the majority of the copy is translated. And if I go to page on the website, any page is automatically translated into that language. And it carries over to all the pages in our website. And I'll go up and I'll choose, here's Arabic, go back to the home page. And it also translates all of the drop-down menu items. So you can find what you're looking for in the language that you select. Let's click on economic development. And that page is translated as well. And that's it. Back to English. If anyone has any feedback, we welcome feedback, questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor. Actually, I wanted you to stay right there. Perfect. Can you refresh one more time? And really, it's just a comment. I don't think you acknowledged this, but you had it in your presentation and you're demonstrating it. And really, just in the form of community engagement, I wanted to acknowledge publicly, actually scroll back down so we see the photos. Hopefully folks notice that the photos change whenever you refresh. And just wanted to acknowledge that these, for the most part, are all regular residents. I think we had a competition where they were able to submit it, but folks really appreciated that. And it's just I would argue, another way that we're trying to bring our residents in and show that we do care about your perspective. The one that you actually have in the presentation is my best friends. That's how it came to my memory of like, oh yeah, this is something simple, which really I think would just also be my encouragement for anybody that's engaged in community work. Just keep it simple. And I will say that that's what you've done here by spelling this out. I'm sure people are looking at this going, you took a year to come up with this, but these are things that we take for granted. These are things that we forget to do. And these are things that we just presume everybody knows is happening, and it's rarely happening. And then you wonder why nobody showed up, or you wonder why so many people showed up and you didn't expect it. So I appreciate you articulating all of this. This is definitely my day-to-day job as well. So it's just nice to see it all written out and the theory behind it, that it isn't just smile and hope people show up. There's a lot of science behind it, and persistence being the key piece of that science. So thank you for your work.
Councilmember Murray?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Sienna and Carolyn, for the presentation. And I mean, gratitude to everybody involved in this work. I don't think it's any secret that community engagement is an important thing to me. And to have such a thoughtful, spelled out plan about how we're going to intentionally do that moving forward is just, I'm so excited. So I really do. I'm grateful for all the folks that have participated thus far. I'm excited to get it moving forward. I'm really excited about our Community Ambassadors program. And again, I think our Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Commission has done such a phenomenal job in recent years. And there's so much opportunity. They're only, 7 folks. And so, the opportunity to expand the work that we're doing, developing authentic relationships within our community and inviting more people into these spaces. I mean, it makes a difference. And I think I've said this in lots of spaces, but, we talked about how when we went through our boards and commissions process this last year, there was multiple folks that had come in because they had come to a community conversations as kind of their first experience engaging directly with the city. And they were like, oh, this is something I'd like to be more involved in. And so I just think there are so many ways that community engagement benefits us. It helps us get to better outcomes. And I love that we are so intentionally, I think to Councilmember Woodard's point, I think there's lots of work that we've been doing for a long time in different ways in different spaces, but I think having a thoughtful, more scientific approach to it, I think is really phenomenal. I did have a couple of just thoughts and questions. I guess one, thank you for teaching me a new word. I'd never heard the word charrettes, so I had to look that up when I was going through our council materials, so I appreciate that I'm always learning new things as well. I love the community engagement guide, and I think this is phenomenal and would love to see that move forward. I would say, I think one of the things from my perspective that maybe there's opportunity on is just thinking about kind of the barrier or like the level of entry that it talks about. Because so one of the things, it gives some options: connect with city council, help plan new projects, volunteer. I think sometimes that feels overwhelming and maybe like a lot for folks. So, I think maybe opportunities like show up, and maybe an events calendar link, or like, what were some of the other things as we were going through? Or learn, right? And maybe it's just a link to either the history of the city or maybe our most recent city happenings. But I think maybe some of those too, because again, I think sometimes engagement, it starts with something really small and then it builds. And so I guess just making sure that we aren't creating, people see this and they're like, oh, that's great, and that's not me, right? And so that would just be my only encouragement and feedback there to think about. A couple of questions. So one, that accessibility tool, super cool. Excited to see that and appreciate the demonstration. Is there a plan to put together some sort of training on that? I think it'd be helpful to have like a written training and maybe a video training and maybe an in-person even training at some point. I think those are phenomenal tools. I will say, even if you're just having to read things regularly on our website, the idea of, having them be a little bit bigger. And I loved like the reading, kind of lines. And so I think it would just be helpful for our community to understand that resource more fully. And so maybe thinking about how we can do that. And then I did have a question about the translation service. I know traditionally that hasn't worked on our meeting materials because they're separate attachments, and I'm not sure with Civic Plus, is that still the case, or will translation services work on our meeting materials when we move forward with that new platform?
We'll have to talk to the clerk about that. I'm not sure.
Sure.
But that's a great question.
Great, thank you. And then the other thing I guess I was curious about, I think I think the process is great, and support specifically, I think there was, kind of stipends as a proposal and something new, very supportive of that, and think that is a great way to, again, try to continue to find, to recognize that there's different needs within our community and figuring out how to best address them and giving staff some flexibility to do so. Where I do have questions, I think I appreciated that we talked about where engagement is required. I guess what I am curious about, and what I don't feel that I understand yet, is so if staff are engaged in work that has community impact, but it's not required that there's a community engagement component of that work, do we have some sort of guidance or tool to help them figure out whether or not they are moving forward with a project? Ooh, sorry. Do we have some sort of tool or guidance that would help them to figure out whether or not they should be going through this plan to put together it's late, a plan around community engagement?
It's a really great question. That could be something that we add to this. So when we do community engagement, also, Sienna and I have gone through the work plans for every department and identified where there should be some kind of community engagement or communications. They're kind of two different things, but.
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's actually part of our project engagement plan with all the list of questions. I believe one of the questions is, does this project need community engagement? So it's part of the evaluation process that we hope to implement right from the start. If it's not required, should we still do it? What are the goals of it? And the time frame, of course, and then what will that look like? So yeah, that'll be part of the evaluation process right from the start.
No, great, that's fabulous. Just I think, because to your point, all of these things take time and intentionality, and recognize that, particularly when things get busy, as somebody who is, overseeing staff and these sort of I know sometimes it can be like, okay, do I really need this, right? And so I think helping to ensure that there's clarity around expectations, when something does impact the community, that it is part of this process, I think was just helpful to ensure that there's, clarity from the go. So I appreciate that that's part of the thought process. I think that's it. I'm so excited about really the work. I mean, so much of this work has already started, but I am appreciative to have this plan and again, just excited to see where that continues to take us as we move forward in terms of building engagement with our community. So thank you.
Councilmember Page, did you have something? Okay.
First of all, great job, nice presentation. I can tell there was a lot of thought, trial and error, energy, put into this. And I'll echo Councilmember Murray's, the whole community engagement thing. That's what got me started wanting to be a part of this community when I moved here. So I'm glad to see this has gone the way it's gone and what you all have done. Well, a suggestion, and consider this in your stakeholder slide. I didn't see any seniors. I didn't see any demographics for seniors, nor did I see any youth or any of our young people, any of the demographics for them. And I think that that's a very important component. I remember one of the community conversations that we had, I think in here, the most active table was the seniors. They're the ones that provided a whole lot of input and just energy and fun. And so I think that they're a big stakeholder. And then on the other side, our youth that are in high school and our young adults, we're trying to find ways to get them engaged in the city, get them involved in the city, and help us with a thought of what the city's going to look like 20 years from now. So I think they got to be considered very important stakeholders. And, and just lastly, I just want to thank you for the way that you have conveyed information in the city, since you've been here and since y'all put your heads together. It's grown exponentially since I've lived here, and I haven't been here that long. But I look at how the information or the work that you're doing to make sure that various groups that use various platforms get information about the city. Thank you for that effort. Appreciate it.
Okay. Did you have something? Oh, Mayor Pro Tem Wall. Oh, no, did you want to wait? Okay, go ahead, Councilmember Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor. A few questions. I really like how you worked very hard on this and put it together. It really looks very good. Did you mention that to get this going, we need to hire a community member?
No, the Trusted Community the Trusted Community Liaison Program, that one is one where we would pay the liaisons to participate. And I didn't recommend that we move forward on that right now. That's something we should consider in the future after we launch the Community Ambassadors Program and get that going. So.
Thank you. Then would this program, what would it need for a budget to initiate it?
For the whole community engagement program?
Yes.
That is dependent on the project budgets. So it's a project by project related program. So, and that's the purpose of people putting together their project specific engagement plan. So they have to budget for the work in their project before the budget process starts.
But I mean, just for the people to be on the commission or the board and that, because you also mentioned stipends. So I'm curious that on costs.
Oh, the stipends are only for the Trusted Community Liaisons, and we're not starting that right now. So we would have to come up with a whole work program for that and estimate the number of hours, figure out what they would be working on and so forth. So we're not proposing that right now, but we wanted to put on the table what that could look like.
Great. And then to get it started, then we wouldn't have any budgetary needs
For the rest of the community engagement
to
plan?
start the program of the beginning.
No, yeah. I mean, there's budget needs for community engagement, but we have programs going on right now that already have budget for community engagement. So it's something that we're working on. This just provides more structure and like forward thinking about how to move forward in the future.
Would that also involve our events coordinator to help in this matter?
There's certain things that he would get involved with, but it's not specifically related to his work.
Okay. The reason I'm asking these questions is that right now we're dealing with a long-range financial forecast, and we're having a fiscal sustainability task force, and as far as any budgetary things beyond what we have now, I definitely want to put that on hold until we figure out our city's financial forecast.
Right.
Yeah.
So this plan doesn't have a budget associated with it. The proposals that are on the table for action would require it's all within the project budgets, right? So we already have to do community engagement for most of these projects, but we're just asking people to think more critically about it ahead of time to make sure that we have the appropriate budget for what they're planning to do. And then adding the community ambassadors is going to be a huge help for us because that's a volunteer group, not paying them, and they can support this work that we're proposing as well. I mean, they're not doing it on their own, but with Sienna and my help, they'll be helping us do some community engagement work as well.
Well, I think this is just a great thing because our volunteer groups in our city have diminished. And we don't have any baseball teams anymore. We had MTYAA, Mountlake Terrace Youth Association, Athletic Association. That's gone. We don't have volunteers to lead our youth in baseball. The garden club couldn't get any volunteers. I was part of that. Once you get about 90 years old, it's hard to keep going on the garden club. I think we have a garden club member there. Yeah. So, and then there's other organizations. And if this would help stimulate things, I think it's a great asset to the city. So thank you.
Okay. Yeah, for them well.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I first of all really want to thank you for this well thought out plan and the organization and everything that's been put into it. It's been a goal of ours for several years. And I mean, the whole thing, communications, the engagement has been a goal for this council for several years, and we really appreciate you guys stepping it up and making it happen. So thank you. By the way, charrettes, the city did charrettes back in 2008, 9, when we were developed our first town center plan and the design concepts for the town center. So, and it's a great program. We worked on that, developing that in the Planning Commission, working with Shane Hope. Shane Hope was the key part of putting that together. But it's a great process. For those of you who've never done the charrette process, it is a fantastic program of how to show visually different concepts for design or what you're trying to convey. So excited about that, bringing that back. Community ambassadors, I think, is going to be a great program. Again, something we've been talking about for a long time. Particularly the board and interview committee, because we've been having such great quality candidates coming forward and no place to put them. And the community ambassador program is a great opportunity to be able to get those folks. And we've seen it happen. We interview these great quality candidates and no positions on the boards or commissions they're interviewing for. And we want to get them involved in the city. They want to be involved in the city, but we don't have an official place to put them. And the Community Ambassador Program is just a great opportunity for us to be able to get those members of our community involved and engaged and working to help us fulfill some key areas of outreach and being able to work with our community in so many different ways. So really thrilled about that. Looking forward to the Trusted Liaison program. But I agree that, as Councilmember Ryan points out, we've got budgetary issues and we've got to be cautious about that. But I think it has a lot to offer. And so I'm looking forward to getting more information and finding ways to really bring that to our community as well. I suppose I could go on, but I won't. The hour's getting late. I just thank you. Appreciate the well thought out plan and program that you presented tonight. Thank you.
Councilmember Ryan?
Thank you, Mayor. I forgot to add, I really liked Councilmember Page's addition to seniors and especially youth. So I was looking back on a citizen survey we had, and they actually had one just for high schoolers and what they'd like to see in the city. And, but we don't have any place for them. So we got to figure out where 20 years ago we had part of the school auditorium we could use, and we did that national, what was that called, night?
Everybody came.
DARE, no, it wasn't the DARE program. It was but we had a special program.
Yeah, it was a special program for youth on the weekends. Yeah. And it was great because when it got going, the kids wouldn't go up and down my street yelling and screaming and waking me up at 2 a.m. So it was really a great program. It was a place they could play basketball and baseball and video games and that. Of course, I saw the survey, and of course, it's gaming is what they'd like. I think it was
probably another.
Yeah, no homework. And it was, I think, 67% wanted gaming or something. So I have some ideas there. But anyway, I just wanted to piggyback on Councilmember Page's comment there. So thank you.
All right. I don't see anyone else with their hands up, so.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, next is the city manager's report. Usually we see that much earlier.
Thank you, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and members of council. I had a few things on my list tonight, but in an effort to keep this short of 10 p.m., I'll just share one item. There's a recent opioid settlement at the state level with Purdue Pharma and the Sackler family. And our contribution, should we sign on to that, or our settlement, should we sign on to the overall settlement, is a little over $1.2 million. And I'd be happy to bring this to you at a council meeting if you'd like more information on it. But because of the amount, I wanted to make sure that I mentioned it before we went ahead and signed on to the agreement. We do have to sign on before September 30th of this year. So if there are no objections, I didn't think there would be, but I did want to mention it in a public meeting just so that you're all aware of what's happening there.
Take the money.
Yes, Councilmember Murray.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, City Manager. Just a quick question, no objection. Take the money. But is that a lump sum or is that paid over a number of years? I guess I'm just curious when we're getting what potentially.
Yeah, I believe this one is over 10 years.
Great, thank you.
All right, anyone else? Okay. So next is the city, the council liaison reports. We have a little more than 10 minutes. So why don't we start with Councilmember Woodard, and then we'll just move this, and then go that way, and then come this way.
Thank you, Mayor. You're going to need to extend the time. at the last meeting, I was online, and it's always kind of hard to hear, but it seemed like when we brought up, hey, we haven't talked in over 2 months, so I have all of June, all of July. I made a recommendation to send it in to the clerk in advance, and I thought that that generated conversation about whether that was legal, what the process was, which then led to, well, what should we report on, what's in the mix, what's not in the mix. So I thought, well, I'm going to make sure everything that I've done, and I have a filter, is recorded. So I have 30 items that I'm going to read into the public record. More importantly, I would ask that we use this example of the 30 items I'm going to list as a way to have that conversation about what should we be reporting on. We don't have to do that now.
I just want to mention, when that conversation took place, we did place an item on a future work session agenda to discuss just that.
Oh, outstanding. So then I would ask that whoever's interested reflect back to the 30 that I'm going to read, and feel free to critique when we get to that soon-to-be scheduled conversation. So these are the 30 that I think matter, or that I was representing the city in the process. So 6/11, June 11th, I was at the Terrace talk. I'm not going to give running commentary. On the 12th, I went to the Shoreline State of the City. Later that day, I had my city manager meeting. Later that day, we had the study session. On the 15th, the city asked me to be a keynote speaker at our Juneteenth event, and I also served on the panel. On the 18th, the county asked me to speak on behalf of our city at our Juneteenth event at the flag raising. On the 19th, I attended Linwood, Edmonds, and Shoreline's Juneteenth events. At some of them, I was allowed a few times to speak and share words about City of Mountlake Terrace's connection to Juneteenth and personally. On the 21st, I had the opportunity to hear Dr. Jokey talk at the library, a direct connection to Mountlake Terrace and walking on the moon. I couldn't imagine a better talk. That's my only running commentary. On the 26th, I did attend a study session. On the 3rd, I did attend our July 3rd event. July 10th, I did participate in Music in the Plaza. I then got up and came into the study session that same day. On the 13th, the 32nd District held a luncheon, which was an opportunity to come together with like-minded folks in other cities. On the 16th, I participated in Economic Alliance's port report. I saw our new colleague Ryan there. Actually, I saw him through quite a few of these, so I just wanted to acknowledge that. The 17th, I went to Music in the Park. On the 18th, I had the honor of being in the parade. On the 19th, I participated in, or actually I attended, I should say, a talk put on by Unidos on white supremacy and policing. And I'm going to not give running commentary there. On the 20th, I had the opportunity to do a radio interview with KSER on some community organizing that I'm doing and explaining and showing why Mountlake Terrace is involved. On the 23rd, I had the opportunity to speak from the highest platform I've ever had, which was the Columbia Tower, 76th floor, once again talking about Mountlake Terrace, in particular about the LNC in Mountlake Terrace. On the 24th, I attended Music in the Park, in the Plaza, left that early to join our colleague in the finance meeting, and then got up from the finance meeting and went to the study session. All that was on the 24th. On the 26th, I was invited by SAGE to be a panelist for incoming African immigrants who want to learn how to access systems like this. That same day, I helped put on a music festival that had a couple thousand people attend. On the 29th, I attended our MLT Chambers meeting. On the 30th, we were invited by West African Washington Center, WAWAC, on a tour. On the 30th, I met with Councilmember Murray, to talk about the city manager review, which we'll revisit under new business. On the 31st, I attended Music in the Park. On the 5th of August, I barely made it to National Night Out. and just today had the honor of being at the grocery outlet ribbon cutting. Now, if you're wondering, did I do anything fun? Yes, there were a lot of storm games in there, and I also did a lot of Linwood Neighborhood Center tours, which is a foreshadow that you, as a council and city manager, should have received an email invitation from me, just making that clear, to visit do a legislative tour in September. So you might be prone to think, oh, it's just Steve and delete, but I would encourage you to reread that because it's not coming from Steve, the city manager version or city version. It's coming from VOA's inviting this council to see that progress that you invested in. And that will be the end of my report. Thank you.
Depends on the, yeah, we'll go with 10:15.
We can go to 10:20, and then if we earlier, we're done. We don't need to go till then. Okay. Mayor Pro Tem Walsh.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Move to extend the meeting until 10:15.
Second.
Did I hear a second? It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye. Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to go with focusing on my council liaison reports. Councilmember Woodard mentioned our subcommittee meeting on the city manager's review process. And so again, he mentioned we'll bring that up under new business. We also had 2 Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Commission meetings over the last 2 months. Much of that work, it was reflected in the community engagement plan that we saw tonight, as well as a significant amount of time spent in thoughtful reflection on feedback that had been received about Flock and next steps around that. They are also actively, engaged in all of the various summer programming that we have, and so those things were discussed. They had an amazing turnout at our parade, so kudos to them for inviting not just members of our community and our commission, but members of commissions from around the area and staff from other communities. I thought it was a great turnout and loved to see that. So kudos to them for the good work that they keep doing. And then active planning, welcoming week was mentioned a little bit earlier, so hopefully folks have that on their calendar for September here. Is that on our council calendars? I actually haven't checked that. It's on my calendar. I don't know if that means it's on everyone's calendars, but welcoming week is the 20th of September from 10 to 4 at Terrace Park Elementary. Carolyn, let me know if I got any of that wrong. That's what I put on my calendar. But would encourage folks to start socializing that. It's going to be a little bit different this year. So last year was the first year that we did that event. Oh, no, it's not at Terrace Park Elementary. See, it's here this year. Yes. So it's going to be outside in the plaza, which is going to be really exciting. So it's at the same time as our art fair. And so there's, I think, really great opportunity for kind of folks to go back and forth and visit all of the wonderful artwork that we'll have over at the library, as well as to come over and meet with all sorts of amazing community partners who have volunteered to show up as part of that event. And again, Welcoming Week is specifically focused on, immigrants in particular, although everyone is welcome to come to the event and learning more about the resources and opportunities that are available in our community. So excited about that and hope folks have that on their calendars. I think the other kind of liaison sort of report that I think is helpful is we've also had 2 regional recreation conversations in this last 2 months since we've reported last. So those are conversations that really have been driven by city staff here in Mountlake Terrace to build on the conversations that we have had around the fact that our recreation pavilion is really past end of life, but staff, our talented staff continues to find solutions to keep it functional for our community. And we know that we need that won't last forever, right? And so we need to explore what happens, in the future. And so, we have talked as a council about some of the, kind of options, and there's a range of options between, kind of going it alone on our side to look at options as Mountlake Terrace alone. And we talked a little bit about the cost involved with new facilities, which is significant. We heard an update at this last meeting for one of our local communities who is now looking, or local neighbors who's looking at a aquatics only facility, so a pool. And they're looking at about $100 million to build that facility, like $20 million for property acquisition and about $80 million to build. And so I think those are just things we have to keep in mind. And so as part of the kind of looking for options, I think that's what our ask was, like, how do we better understand what our options are? Staff, I think, has done a phenomenal job of bringing together stakeholders. I mean, all of our neighboring communities, King County, Snohomish County, school districts. This last meeting, Edmond School District and Shoreline School District had representatives there. King County and Snohomish County sent representatives. I think it has been, I will just applaud our staff for doing a phenomenal job in both bringing folks together and leading, I think, really productive conversations around potential options, including different, parks districts options. And again, those are things that we could look at individually as Mountlake Terrace, or also, any potential collection of neighboring jurisdictions. So conversations are ongoing. I don't think I have the right notes in front of me, but I think things that stood out, there's a need for aquatics facilities, there is a desire for aquatics facilities, and there is real challenges from a funding perspective, which is why we see less and less of those facilities available. But I appreciate that we are trying to look creatively at how we meet the moment and figure out how to best serve our community's needs. So I'm sure we will have lots more information for you. There's another meeting scheduled in October. I'm happy to talk more about it if you're interested. Happy to pull up my notes and tell you more, or share the materials. But know that work is going on, and I think for council, know that work is going on, and I think staff is doing a wonderful job. And I think to our community, know that, we are looking at options as a city, and what exists now cannot exist forever. And so at some point we will have to come back and have conversations as a body about what is next for us. And I think I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Councilmember Ryan.
Thank you. I'll be less than an hour. Just kidding. Anyway, July 3rd, 3rd of July, Mountlake Terrace. 8th of July, Left One Retirement Board. 15th, Arts Commission, preparing for the juried art show in September. 17th, Snohomish County Cities and Towns meeting. And then, of course, today, August 7th, the ribbon cutting at Grocery Outlet. Thank you.
Councilmember Page.
Okay. Last month, Councilmember Murray was part of the aquatics, region aquatics meeting, so I'm not going to reiterate that. A lot happened, and that's not all I'll say, because you explained everything that needs to be explained, I think. Also, in July, I attended, represented at the with the WRAI 8 group, first on the 9th with the technical committee, and they kind of talked about salmon monitoring, and then on the 17th, salmon recovery meeting, and talked about budgets and our budget proposals and grants. And I'm looking forward to now, having attended a couple of these meetings, to, getting with the city and, possibly Sarah, and talk about how that group, in our city can, how do I want to say it? How we best can protect what they're trying to do, and how what they're doing can work with the city in order to make sure that our Chinooks are safe, and our waterways are doing what we need to be doing on our end. Obviously, on the 18th was the Terrace Parade. On the 23rd, I took a tour of the domestic violence facility in Everett. a group who received a $10,000 grant, from the city. And it was a really good tour, received a better understanding of the processes involved in how these victims, arrive in the facility, what the assistance is available to them, and the resources that the facility use and has to keep them moving forward with their lives. And due to budget costs, they're really tasked with finding, new ways to do what they do. So our grant really does go a long way. So it was a very worthwhile trip, going to that and spending the time. On the 26th, I was able to attend the Nubian Jam again, and but from a different seat. Now I was a council member, whereas before I was a DI commissioner. And it just opened up opportunities to interact with a lot of our community diverse groups about things that we talked about this time versus what I talked about the last two times, because I'm wearing a different hat. And I've also attended the last couple MLT Chamber of Commerce after hours. And I only mention that because I've had opportunity to share with them, their plan. We agreed to give them some money to increase their membership. And so we talk about that, and I, share some ideas that I think that they felt were worthwhile, as well as today while we was at the grocery outlet ribbon cutting. So, going to those things for me, I think represents us well and gives us opportunity. And I think all of us should have that opportunity when they have these events to go and do what we need to do to make sure that, going into the future here, our interests, are really being taken care of, the city's interest as far as, what businesses are they going to attract, who are they looking for, how they're going to do it, and make sure that, there's an equity lens. That's on everything that they're trying to do, for the city with the chamber. Okay, that's all I got.
Mayor Pro Tem Wall.
All right, thank you, Madam Mayor. Buckle up. Going all the way back to June. I won't go into detail as much as I'd like to, because I, pick up lots of amazing information at these meetings that I really would like to be able to share with you, but I'll save that for another night. All right, so on the 10th of June, had the Snohomish County Tomorrow Exploratory Committee. I'm the co-chair of that. We're exploring areas where we're going to expand our focus topics for Snohomish County Tomorrow. I think I've mentioned this before, but we're looking at housing, transportation infrastructure, health and human services, and transportation infrastructure and economic development. The four key focus areas we're going to be spending a lot more time on at SCT. More on that later. Then on, the City Council work session on the 12th, the Juneteenth on the 15th, a great program right out here that I'd love to see how that is expanding, and excited about the future of continuing to do that, celebrate Juneteenth. On the 20th, had the Snohomish County Cities and Towns Executive Board meeting. On the, we had the AWC conference, which several of us attended from the 24th through the 27th. While I was at the conference, or actually just before on the way to the conference, we met with Mike Fong, the Economic Development Director, and the city manager, and the mayor, and I, and our economic development manager. Mike Fong is the economic development director of Snohomish County. On the 25th, while at the AWC conference, had the SCT Snohomish County Tomorrow Steering Committee meeting. And then the following morning on the 26th, had the Puget Sound Regional Council Operations Committee, followed by the Puget Sound Regional Council Executive Board meeting. And then later that evening, we had our council meeting. Let's see. All right. That was June. July. On the 1st of July, had the South Snohomish County Council's council presidents and mayors pro tem meeting, our monthly meeting. On the 3rd of July, the mayor and I met with the city manager. And then, of course, we had their 3rd of July celebration. Another was, again, fantastic job all around with everybody. It was a great event. Love to see how that continues to be such a key part of the events that we put on here at Mountlake Terrace. On the 8th, had the Snohomish County Tomorrow Steering Committee meeting. On the 9th, had the Snohomish County Tomorrow Executive Committee meeting. On the 10th, had the Snohomish County, oh, wait a minute, let's see. Oh, on this, had the Snohomish County, so the co-chairs of the Snohomish County Tomorrow Exploratory meeting follow up after the Exploratory Committee meeting, just to take in what we heard and plan for our next meetings. City Council work session on the 10th. On the let's see, down here on the 15th, we, Councilmember Murray, the mayor, and I talked about the follow-up on the boards and commissions and the recommendation for the appointment to fill the RPAC position vacancy. And we talked about, followed up on the interests of the community ambassador program and finding places to put all these great volunteers that are interested in getting engaged. On the 16th, let's see, that was the Snohomish County collaboration. So that was our South County regional collaboration meeting. So another area that, you know, just like Mountlake Terrace is leading the charge on the aquatics discussion regionally, we were leading the charge on working together with our South County cities to explore opportunities. It's been very proud of what we're doing there and excited about the potential of how we are finding ways to work together, reduce costs, find efficiencies. Again, more on that later, but we're I think, having some great meetings and finding lots of opportunities to work together. We'll talk more about those things like the South County Fire. You read in the reports the South County Fire and the regional crisis response programs and that they have available, and we're working together to, you know, in team with our Scout program and our Blue Bridge, you know, all the different ways that we're helping to deliver for those in need throughout our community. Is just one of the things. I mean, we're looking at asset collection, figuring out, you know, all the different resources that all the different cities are having, utilizing, and as a way to share resources better. We're looking for opportunities to, you know, reduce costs, find, you know, is there really a need for everybody to have their own this and own that versus being able to share resources and work more collaboratively together. So it's, again, more on that later. I'm very excited about it, so I want to share where we're going with it. I back off since I'm taking up time. All right, let's see. 17th, we had the Snohomish County Cities and Towns Dinner. On the 18th, had of course, our festival and parade. Again, great job with everybody. It was a huge lift out of the gate, first time there, and appreciate all the time that was put in and making that happen. So thank you. On the 23rd, had Snohomish County Tomorrow Steering Committee meeting. 24th, Puget Sound Regional Council Operations Committee, followed by the Puget Sound Regional Council Executive Board. Later that evening on the 24th, we had our Finance Committee meeting, as we mentioned, and followed by our work session. And let's see, August 5th had Snohomish County, South County Council Presidents and Mayors Pro Tem meeting. On that evening, we had the National Night Out. The 6th, we had this Snohomish County Tomorrow Executive Committee meeting, and then followed by the mayor and I and city manager have a regular meeting, quarterly meeting with our council member Jared Mead. So just sharing ideas and things. So we're opening up that communication route with the county, and very happy to be involved with that. And thank you, the mayor, for helping make that happen. Okay, I think that, this morning was the grocery outlet. Welcome to our community. Excited to have them here. And this afternoon, the mayor and I met with this city manager. That concludes my report.
Yes, I was going to say, can we extend it for another 5 minutes?
We've had
Probably won't take
new
it.
business too, though, so probably 10 minutes. Okay.
10 minutes?
Well, then we don't have to do it again.
Okay, okay, let's extend it to 10:25. And then we can always end early. Mayor Pro Tem Walz.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Move to extend the meeting to another 10 minutes to 10:25.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? So we're extended till, you get to talk right after. Okay. All right, so mine hopefully will be real short. Oh, you do? Okay, go ahead.
I wanted to round out my hour. I forgot the 31st. On the same day, the 30th of the WAWAC tour, earlier that morning, National Civic League, which is an organization that put on these webinars across the nation, I was invited by Civic Genius to talk about an experience that I had with them called This Is Your America. Interesting enough, all about community engagement and bringing out voices in your community. So it was an honor to serve as an expert on that panel.
Okay. So I'll start at June 12th. I went to the Shoreline State of the City. On the 23rd, I went to a Snohomish County Mayor's meeting. On 24th to the 27th to the AWC meeting in the Tri-Cities. On July 2nd, the Master Builders Breakfast, where we got to speak about the Mountlake Terrace middle housing. And on the 3rd of July, we're into July now. I went to the community transit meeting, and then the 3rd of July fireworks. On the 10th, music in the plaza. On the 16th, South County collaborators, and we met in Mill Creek that day. And on the 17th, the Snohomish County Cities and Towns. On the 18th, was in the parade. On the 23rd, toured the domestic violence shelter in Everett. On the 24th, again, music in the plaza. And then on the 28th, the Snohomish County Mayor's meeting. And the 29th, the Mountlake Terrace Chamber over in the North Star Building. On the 30th, the WAWAC, the West African Center tour. And on the 31st, the ULI meeting and tour. And on August, the August 1st, Seashore Transportation Forum. And then I also went to the Dragon Boat Festival that they had over in the Edmonds Waterfront Center. And on the 5th, I attended National Night Out. On the 6th, I attended the South County Mayor's luncheon in Mukilteo, and then the meeting with Jared Mead. And then this morning, the ribbon cutting over at the grocery outlet, and then a community transit meeting this afternoon, and that's the end of 2.5 months. And then next is the new business. Does anyone have any new business? Councilmember Woodard.
Thank you, Mayor. This is on behalf of Councilmember Murray and myself. We had the opportunity, as I mentioned in the report, to meet to talk about our city manager's upcoming review, performance review. And what we wanted to bring to this council is after probably about an hour, 2 hours of conversation, decided that it's in our interest as a council to contract out as we did last time. And so we would like to bring that forward in whatever capacity. We're happy at another time, maybe at 7 o'clock, to talk through what our rationale was. But if you wanted to get into it now, we could do it now. We still have 7 minutes, so 7's the lucky number. But that said, that is our recommendation. I don't know if Councilmember Murray wants to add anything other than it was a wonderful conversation and long overdue conversation, which is a longer story about community engagement in general.
Thank you, Councilmember Woodard. Yeah, the only thing I would add is just in addition to us deciding that that was our recommendation on path forward, is just, I think, opportunity to get feedback for those of you who were here for the process last year and or in previous years, if there are things that you thought went really well, or feedback of things that maybe you wish we had approached a little bit differently. It's helpful to know that early in the conversation versus down the line, so would welcome you reaching out to Councilmember Woodard and ourselves in order to support the process and make sure that hopefully it works really well for all of us. So.
Okay, anyone else? If not, we're adjourned with 1 minute to spare.